I think there's 4 warrants, right? You know, yeah, I signed them.
Enforce that.
I think there's 4 of them.
The enforcing the no resale?
No,
Oh, sorry,
the 2 hours before closing, you can't go in the swap shed anymore.
No drop off, no drop off, you can go in,
You can go in and
Yeah,
take
well,
out,
But how are they
So you're
gonna
gonna have
enforce
to
it?
station somebody down there?
well, we're gonna do signs, and to begin with, we'll have to have somebody to make sure, but yeah, that's what the new signs will make clear, and then we'll put some stuff in the mosquito,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to have a whole kind of, mini education. Uh-oh, change.
Yeah, we still need to raise this.
Well, there's a whole,
fees.
we gotta look at, there's a lot of other stuff we're looking at too, but this is just one,
Oh, we
that,
got
we
numbers.
should just do it.
Thank you. Excess living capacity. Oh, we're not gonna use that, but,
What's that? Yeah, I'll take that, yeah. So, did that print out better? Yeah, that was impossible to read, right?
okay, that goes in number 3. Because I wrote myself a little script.
Wait, what is this? Now, why are we seeing the police blotter? Oh, to
It's
show
just
that
the
public hearing, that
public-
it was
the
posted.
postage.
Gotcha.
Nathan will be late. Do we know anything about Luke?
I didn't hear from him. He didn't,
Okay, so he didn't say he was gonna be late or not here. So,
not
okay.
that I recall. I can,
Well, we'll start promptly at 7. Nathan will be here at 8:30. I wish he had been here for the number 2. I think he
Yeah.
should have heard that. but-
Alan, did anything of interest happen at the Board of Health after I left? That was when they started the discussion about their space heaters.
Yeah, I mean, it had nothing to do with the Board of Health.
Okay, yeah,
And so, there were some kibitzers, but nothing happened, that just passed over. No, the big, did you leave after the fines were determined? Okay,
yeah, that was the big deal.
The only
yeah.
other things were the personnel request. They're gonna come in with a new personnel request, which reduces the number of hours, but upgrades the, duties and qualifications of the person they wanna hire. So at no cost, there'll be no additional cost to the town, because they'll replace 30 hours with 24 hours or something like that. But somebody who will be eligible for certification and succession and that sort of thing.
And they wanted, that's gonna be on this warrant.
Well,
Or maybe it doesn't need to be.
They want to
Can't
ask for
be.
it. They want to come in and ask again.
Basically, they missed the deadline.
Yeah,
So they're going to ask for us to waive the deadline
okay.
Yeah,
and
and reconsider.
reconsider, which I don't think we should do.
Well,
We'll talk about it, and we'll talk about it
Yeah.
then.
we'll see
Yeah.
what this is.
Second,
Yeah,
yeah, well, because I think
yeah.
there's a bunch of reasons.
How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good.
You all set for Thanksgiving?
Yeah,
Yeah?
yeah, pretty, I mean, there's a lot of cooking. We'll host at our house.
Are you gonna host at your house?
So-
Yeah.
Yeah, and Michael's loves it. He loves this, even though at the end of it, he's like,
The groaning board.
he loves the whole
Yes,
gather
yes,
around
yes,
the
yes.
groaning table, you know?
Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So,
There may be no balloons at the parade this year in New York.
Because of the winds,
Because of
yeah.
wind,
oh, is it supposed to be really windy? or-
Terrible.
The-
Yeah, Thursday's supposed to be bad here, too.
Yep.
Yeah,
We'll be in Rockport, we'll,
You'll get to watch it.
yeah, I get to watch it.
That's it, it's gonna be in northeast end.
Yeah.
So, but it's wind, it's not rain
There's
and,
gonna be rain, but not on Thursday morning. Well, tomorrow is
That's
rain,
good,
but,
because
yeah.
we're barbecuing.
I just was listening to a piece on the radio about, deep frying
Oh, God.
your
yeah, I wouldn't-
turkey. Well, and they,
Well,
It's
another minute.
I have 7.
anyway, well, go ahead.
Okay, well, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
We
no,
might
no,
as
no
well start,
problem.
just
We
in
can
case.
chit chat later.
Good. Are we on? We're all set? Okay. Good evening, it's 7 o'clock, and I'd like to welcome you to the Town of Carlisle Board of Selectmen's meeting, Tuesday, November 26th, 2019. As usual, what I do is read the agenda. Some things are taken out of order, depending on how we're moving through our agenda items, but in general, 7 o'clock, we have community input. 7:05, Planning Board Chair Madeline Blake will be giving us a presentation on a Planning Board update. At 7:30, the continued fiscal year 20 tax classification hearing, and that will be done on time, Madeline, because you know about hearings. 8 PM, license renewal hearings. 8:30, discussion of transfer station operations. At 9, discussion of proposed 2020 town meeting warrant articles. 9:15, town government organization and policy and bylaw review. 9:30, appointments and resignations. 9:35, town administrators report. 9:45, the liaison reports. 9:55, minutes. And 10 PM, executive session, not to return to open session in order to approve previous executive session minutes. 10:15, hopefully, we'll be adjourning. So is there anybody here for community input? Bob Zog.
Hi, I'm Bob Zog, 923 North Road, and also Chair of the Energy Task Force.
I'm Debbie Bentley from Field Road, also on the Energy Task Force.
So we're here tonight just to underline the urgency we're feeling towards the annual report for the Green Communities Program. We're recommending all hands on deck effort to finish this. There's a lot of work that appears left to be done, and we know resources are tight. So we're available to help. We've offered to assist in ways we can, but there's a lot of information that can only come from records that the town has. You know, things about changes in zoning laws, things about changes in, or how many new new homes have been built under the stretch code. A lot of data on our energy use and whatnot. We haven't heard a status update today, and we've been trying to track daily. We're here to help assist town hall staff in any way we can, but we do recommend that that the select board do whatever you can to free up resources to get this done. It's due the 4th, and we think there's still a lot of work to be done.
Is it December 4th? December 4th?
December 4th.
Another one
Yikes.
that's due 4th of January, but I'll take care of that.
And I'll let Debbie
Oh, no, so just,
embellish on that.
no, I don't really want, I've got a handout, because I know you can't come back to us. This shows you the information that's required, and the green is what the town is on town records. The red is what we've already submitted or we can help with easily. You know, we're just saying we just need to get this done. If we don't get it done, we're kicked out of applying for a grant next year, and we're already getting the bids for those. So we're sort of underway with those, and then
Right, good point.
this is why it's so desperate, because we need to apply for grants for new equipment in, you know, various library, town hall, wherever. So,
Okay. Yeah, that would be helpful, thank you.
Anything else?
I think that's it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jonathan?
Jonathan Nicock, 130 Oak Hill Road, also on the Energy Task Force. But I'm here for a completely different reason. I just wanted to give you a quick update. You know, the time is short for getting the EV charger in. In order to try to expedite that, I just wanted you guys to know, Eversource is looking at putting an overhead line across so that they don't have to trench through Church Street in the winter. So hopefully, if they can get all of their ducks in a row, at the December meeting, the first December meeting of the Board of Selectmen, we'd like to hold a public hearing to allow for that. So, okay?
Great. Any other public input? Seeing none, I think we'll move on to having the planning board.
That is
Very Christmassy.
Yes, very Christmassy. Merry Christmas.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Good evening.
Thanks for having us. I brought Pete Yell, the vice chair of the planning board as well, who's been helping me with this initiative that I'm going to talk about tonight. And in particular, Pete did a very systematic review of workflows at the planning board, which has been helpful. So I want to first review where we are. I was here on September 24th, and there was a pending request for additional staff from the planning board. And at that meeting, our longtime planning administrator actually stated that he gave some specificity to when he will retire, and it will be in the end of fiscal 20 or the beginning of fiscal 21. And I believe you said you need to go and make a succession plan and come back. So that's what.
That's only what I've been preaching to everybody for about 3 years, but
And you also said that there were other boards that needed to do that, which
Exactly.
planted a seed in my head. So since that time, at the planning board, we formed a working group, and it's been myself and Pete and Jason Walsh working on that, and we're not finished. But because of the ongoing budget process, I think it's really important to kind of stay in touch with all of the powers that be with where we are on this. I guess as a starting point, I think that the planning board can achieve some efficiencies. And I can't say exactly how much or how or who or what, but I firmly believe that, and potentially over the long term make do with even less staff than we have now. So that's what we've been kind of looking at and trying to figure out. But I think it's important not just to consider the volume of work, but the level of person that should carry out that work. And I think we should be conscious of what programs we're carrying out, which are required, which are not, which we want to do anyway. So those are kind of the ingredients and the dimensions that we've been looking at. So what I want to cover tonight, idea A, in the lack of a better term to describe it, which is kind of a broader, more ambitious idea that would involve working with other boards. And then idea B, which is if nobody wants to work with us and we're on our own, what the planning board needs to have a plan of what it's going to do. And then the third piece of this is, because of these looming budget deadlines that we may or may not be in time for, we may have to have an interim plan to carry us through a year until we can come to, another budgeting process. So I talked to the planning board about this on last Monday, the 18th, and hope to continue discussing with them on the 9th and have agreement at that point on a general direction. So this is very much an ongoing process. It's not decided, there's no specifics, and that's why I don't have like a nice handout for you guys with a chart or something. Why do I think we should do such an expansive review and take this time? It's a really rare chance to think about how we're set up and how we function. The previous planning administrator has been here 23 years, and if the next one stays even half that long, this is literally the only chance in 30 years that we could rearrange this structure. And it's potentially even more of a rare opportunity if these other boards also have turnover coming up, and there might be a time when, over a period of a short span of years, there's a lot of turnover, and we could really look at how we structure things. What are my goals for this? What are we trying to do? The number one is to have the continued smooth functioning of the planning board. I'd like to see us increase our efficiency and increase our use of technology and increase our other coordination with boards and staff. So those are things we've been thinking about. And I want to say that increasing efficiency is not a criticism of the town hall staff for being inefficient, because they are not. In my view, the inefficiencies arise from the structure that all of us set up more than how individuals carry out their roles. I think they're doing an amazing job in the structure that we've given them. So idea A, which is not an incredibly novel idea because a lot of towns do this, most bigger towns, is to combine the land use functions into one board. And there would be someone who would have a title, something like Director of Land Use or Director of Planning and this and this and this. And under that person, there'd be probably a person for each department. And then part of what I think could happen if you had someone at the top directing things, we could increase our use of technology and get efficiencies that way. And I don't have it all figured out what the level of all these people should be. I think it would be important that you could have cross competencies, like if one person was really good in technology for one area, they could help the other areas. You could start to have joint, staff meetings where people cross-train for each other's jobs, and you could start to integrate some of these functions. I mean, they definitely have different specialties in terms of road building, wetlands, and the Board of Health has septic systems. But the idea of these regulatory proceedings that we carry out, I think there's a lot of overlap with that. I think we should think about whether this would change the budgeting process, and potentially all of these boards could budget together. And this person could do that and help us do that. The way I've been envisioning it, although this is not set in stone, there'd be some kind of a committee that has a representative from all the boards that end up doing this. That would be the oversight, because this new person would also need to have a supervisor. And I always see the procedure in the paper that they carry out for the school superintendent, where there are goals set in a public hearing at the beginning of the period, and then at the end, there's a public assessment. And we could carry that high level of supervision out, but then I think this person could really do a lot towards having like consistent, positive, meaningful supervision of some of these groups, where we're now, I could tell my group that I want them to wear suits because I think that's important, and the conscom could decide they're gonna wear shorts because they go out in the field, and I mean, these people sit next to each other and they're treated differently on some level, and I think we could improve that. Am I forgetting anything?
No, I think you're hitting it on the head. I think a lot of what Madeline said in the beginning was, in looking at what the planning board needs is we need a strategic thinker and we need administrative assistance. But we don't have really enough workload to support both full-time. So if that's existent within the planning board, then, Madeline, we'd like to explore that with the other boards and get their feedback and just say that, because to Madeline's point, is it 1.5, is it 1, is it 3/4? We don't know that yet until we talk with all the other boards. But we need a strategic thinker and we need administrative assistance. And that's what we want to explore. And departments looking at their tasks in silos that would have this administrative oversight to then foster more interaction. And I think that's what you've been saying.
And then just briefly, if this obviously will require a lot of coordination and a lot of work, and it might not fly because it's not my decision. I hope people would at least meet with me and work on it, but if it doesn't work, what the planning board would do, what I think we should do is to look to hire a full-time person who's relatively junior, 3 to 5 years out of college, with strong technology skills and some planning. And it's not a perfect solution in terms of how many people we need, but I think that would be a way to get maybe the technology skills from the ground up that could assist some of the other people, and the planning skills, and then the ability to carry out the regulatory business that we do.
I think one thing to add, though, is Madeline said it earlier, is other towns have this land use director, and it's not just big towns. Boxborough is a town of that nature that has that. And, so it's not just big towns that are doing this. I think it's really a town of our size that could benefit from this the most, because you do have, people working very hard, but is it, as efficient as it could be?
I mean, Boxborough is an interesting case. I've been calling around to some of these towns to see how they do it. They have a 3/4 time person that carries out their conscom function, and one full-time planning person who spends about 20 to 25 hours a week doing the planning board, and then he personally is programming their GIS for his other 10 to 15 hours a week. Concord has a very robust equivalent to the conscom, but they have 3 rivers. So every town is a little different. They have different needs and different landscapes and whatnot. And then the final piece of this is, what are we going to do if this isn't resolved by, I don't even know what my deadline is, like 2 weeks from now? So the best possible case would be that someone would give us a line item of like contingent money, so if we can figure it out during the next year, it would be budgeted. the other possibility is Pete has been looking into whether it's, and it is possible to hire consultants. You pay them about $100 an hour. And, you know, they'll come one day a week or for whatever you need. And that would be like a town consultant that we pay. We also have the ability through our rules and regulations for big complicated projects. I think for a subdivision road, I could hire an engineer, an urban designer, a lawyer. There was like 5 specific things plus other appropriate personnel. So obviously it wouldn't make a development during this period very cost-effective in Carlisle, but there are some things that we can do to carry us over, although from my mind, you know, it's a less than ideal situation. So I would welcome any suggestions you guys have or feedback or.
What are the boards that you would make a part of this?
Well, my-
Early thinking anyway?
Yeah. I mean, my idea frankly was initially was Board of Health and Conscom, and I recognize that Board of Health does, some of the stuff they do is different, it's health, public health stuff. But those are the boards with staff that are all in town hall working together. And ZBA and the the historical board, I think might also be good ones to talk to because of what the work that they carry out. My perception is they have less staff, so the integrating of staff wouldn't be as much of an effort as some of the other boards. But I don't know if these other boards are willing to do this. I've tried to have some preliminary discussions with them. I haven't with the Historical Commission because we have a member, Ed Rolfe, who's on there. So I'm hoping to connect with him and then he can talk to them. So I haven't talked to them. The others I've reached out, but I haven't gone publicly before their boards to explain the idea yet, which would be a first step.
And can you say, though, when you've reached out to them, have you had any sort of one-on-one conversations
Yeah,
with any of them?
yeah.
And what's your sense of the response?
I think I had more conversations with Conscom because I reached the wrong person initially and spoke to her, and then I've reached the right 2 people, so I've spoken to more. And so it was a little bit more in detail, and I think they're very willing to work on it. I mean, they're not committing to at all, but to work on it.
Yeah,
And to think
that's
about it
good.
and talk about it.
Yeah.
And then I also did not reach the correct person initially at the Board of Health, but I spoke to one person on the phone and had a good conversation. And I think they're also, she said that she would propose to them for me to come and present to them. And then since that time, their chair reached out to me. So everybody's like
That's good.
willing to talk about
yeah,
it. And that's all you
that's
can
good.
ask. I mean,
Right.
it's,
Yeah.
the devil's
Right.
in the details for sure.
Yeah.
The devil will be in the implementation. This would take, a while
Some
to
time,
implement over
right.
time.
Right.
And I firmly
Right.
believe that if there's any efficiencies that we can realize from this, it should be attrition over time. If we could free some time up for one of these groups, it seems like Tim must have a huge backlog of things that he would like to get done. The energy report that we just heard about. And people could be freed up to help with stuff, and then over time, and they could cross-train to each other's jobs.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, the only one that doesn't really fit neatly is the Board of Health.
Right.
But there are other places, it really does, feels like the, two faces of Eve or whatever, because the 2 pieces seem so different, that
The
maybe.
2 pieces of the Board of Health? or-
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, there's that engineering side, which is, in
Yeah.
the sanitation. And I think that would be an easy piece to just split off, and then Board of Health would have something else, would still have a job, or we could be thinking about more community outreach and community services and join that part with the COA, because it seems like there's some overlap
Excuse me.
there.
Yeah.
That, again, we would maybe get some efficiencies, because we wouldn't be having dual.
Well, I think part of what
People.
Madeline also explained was just really looking at what is the charter, what is the board's charter? And has it grown beyond that charter, and are the services that are being provided, that are driving some budget, are they really correctly positioned? Are they really being correctly offered? And
And we don't know that about
we
the
don't
other
know
boards
that,
at all.
right? We'd have to, and I'm not saying we know that, but those are questions, because it comes up on the planning board when we looked at our workload, and what we're doing, and we're trying to figure out, we definitely, we need the strategic, and we need the administrative, but we don't really have, I don't think we have the workload to support 2 full-time people, but on the same token, we don't wanna dumb down a strategic person. And you can't really think about elevating administrative, because then you might be lacking on the real knowledge that
Yeah,
you're gonna
that-
need. So,
Yeah.
so we're struggling here, and I think that's why we're coming to now to say, this might be a good time to look at how it's structured, how the town hall is supporting its boards, and have that discussion, and try to put a plan in place. It takes a period of time.
It's not likely that's gonna be happening within 2 weeks.
Yeah,
No, it's not. I mean, I run a business, I can make things happen in 2 weeks, and I would, but Alan tells me to slow down.
Well, and I'll just say, I think it's a really worthwhile effort to pursue, because I think it just makes all kinds of sense, given the timing and, this 30-year period that we're kind of right in the middle of, that we could have an opportunity to, this is a good opportunity to try to make that kind of change with, and it, just from a kind of a common sense point of view, having more coordination and maybe more flexibility in terms of what people work on based on what the needs are, so that it's not so much, you've got your pot of work here, yours is here, and it doesn't matter how they fluctuate, you're only working in your area. I think that makes all kinds of sense, both from a efficiency, but also from how it feels as an individual working on it, right? That you're all kind of in coordination and you're all helping each other out. And so I think I would definitely support trying to, keep going on these conversations. And I'm not quite sure what you're asking, and maybe you're still working that out, but sort of in the short run for 2021, which is what we're, working on right now in terms of the budget. Do you
Do you think I could get some money, like $20,000 as a down payment, or is that hopeless? That's what I'm asking.
so, I think, I'm sorry to pause,
I'm
but
sorry,
I
I'm
want
late.
to, it's okay.
Give
A
you
lot
the-
earlier than I thought.
He's
it would
very
be.
Short
early.
version?
Yeah, like
And it's-
4-sentence version.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
I wanna
Pete
start
and I
with
and the planning board, Pete and I have been working on it more. We have an idea, instead of just replacing the same skill set and same amount of hours that we have with our current planning administrator, that we will explore with other boards in town, whether there's an opportunity to kind of integrate the staff some more under a shared director position.
So
So,
a new role or a?
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, the details of this are to be worked out, but my idea is that George being replaced, some of it would go into the assistant role, and then there's a piece of it that's strategic thinking and judgment, that we have this overall person that would run these departments, provide management, provide personnel administration for them, and some of the work for each area. And I do get the question, how can you ever expect to find someone who's gonna go to all these night meetings? And like any supervisor, they're gonna figure out which ones they need to go to, which ones are important, which ones can be handled by someone else.
And how many boards might come under it?
My original idea was that it would be planning board, board of health, and conscom.
Land use boards.
Yeah, because I perceive that they all have staff that work together. It's also been suggested that ZBA and the Historic Commission might be good additions, and I recognize that both of those boards have different missions, and they do stuff I don't even begin to understand yet, and especially health has got a separate, piece of work that they do, so it might not be feasible with all of them. So my first thought that we should do is to make a committee or something and work on it and think about it and kick it around and set ourselves a deadline.
Thank you for the quick update.
Yeah, I think another area where this would be really beneficial is when big projects come in. I know you guys see it on planning board, and when I was on conscom, you get a big project in it, and it's, it's like a fire just happened, and everybody's focused on that.
Bounce it back, but the other thing was that big projects would bounce, because I was also on planning board at one point, and they used to bounce back and forth, because we would say something, and then we'd say, but you have to go see conscom, then they would
Yeah,
see
right.
conscom, would say, you can't put that road there where the planning board said, because that's this, and then they'd be back to us.
Yeah, right.
And then we'd go back to them, and,
Yeah, no, there's definitely that, but I'm also just talking about resources, right? So if you have shared resources where
Yeah.
you can have 3 people working on a project
Yes.
as opposed to 1 or 2,
Yes.
I think that's huge, because then you can, you know, you can get it resolved quicker, right? So then you don't get that backlog, because that's kind of what we see now, you know, what is it called? Woodward, what's it called?
Yeah, Woodward.
Woodward, yeah.
Village,
Brain fog.
Woodward Village
Village,
Association.
whatever, court, whatever it's called. But like that happens, right? And you've got, you know, like 2 people from Conscom focusing on it, right? And you know, you gotta figure all that stuff out. And then you have 2 people from planning board. But it all comes in different phases, right? I mean, there's that initial, whoa, but really, each piece is a little separate, like the Board of Health has their piece. But then, you know, the ebbs and flows are at different times. So if you get in, you know, kind of stack resources accordingly, you know, as according to need, I think that could be huge. Yeah, I do wonder if we can find that head person. I mean, obviously, they must be out there, you know, and how critical that role will be to keep for an extended period of time. But again, if you have 3, you know, because HISCOM and ZBA don't have administrators, right? They just have admin staff, right? So if you have 3 very competent people underneath, then, you know, for Conscom, Board of Health, and Planning, then you probably don't have to worry about that person leaving as much, right? Because those 3 could kind of carry the load until that position was replaced. But, you know, again, it's.
Or somebody in one of those roles.
Or somebody in
moves
one
into
of,
that role.
exactly, right, and then you
Right.
backfill, right? So I think there's a lot of potential here. Yeah, I think it's a longer discussion, and I'm assuming when you say you've talked to the other departments, it's the boards, or is it the admin, the administrative? Okay, yeah. But, yeah, I mean, it will, yeah, no, which is great, yeah, because we'll definitely have to, you know, talk with, you know, Linda and George and Sylvia to get their take, but it's a board decision.
Right,
is
and
a
where
board,
would this new role, this land use manager role report in?
Well, I think that that there should be a committee formed with one representative from planning, or every board that participates. They form and I know we probably need another committee, like we need a hole in the head, but I think it wouldn't have to meet a lot. It could meet at the beginning of the year and set goals for the individual, and at the end of the year, like they do for the superintendent. You know, big goals, like I want you to introduce new technology and cross-train, or whatever we decide they should do. And then every board would participate in the supervision through this. I mean, the alternative is to, I think, make it to report to Tim and report to you, but that's a more drastic change, because it's taking all the control away from the boards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, I kind of look at it as more as like kind of who gives the daily or the, you know, the ongoing oversight to make sure that that person has the resources they need and has the mentoring they need. And it seems like infrequent meetings may make it really hard to be successful in that role, particularly if they're new.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, or
So I'd be more inclined to figure out some way that maybe it reported to Tim with, you know, more of a, maybe, I don't want to split Tim, but maybe there is this idea of this group, but there's kind of a daily administration
Well,
person.
Tim should be part of the group, but I think
Okay, I
it's
think
really important for
Tim
supervision.
as a member of the group. Yeah.
It's that the people that are responsible to give supervision are the people with hiring and firing authority. I just think those 2 things have
Yeah.
to be aligned.
Yeah.
And I certainly would,
And Tim actually also has that as
Okay.
the director of personnel.
right, yeah, that's what I was gonna say, you have
On our-
the 3, right, the main 3, because I don't know if you'd really necessarily, so it'd be Board of Health, Conscom, and Planning Board, right? And then you'd probably have a rep from ZBA and HISCOM, so I guess maybe you could have all 5, right? And then a dotted line at Tim, right? So they could really say, you know, because Tim's not gonna necessarily know, okay, Planning Board really needs the focus this time, and, you know, so the boards can decide
Tim would
where
just
the
have to
attention.
go to all their meetings.
Yeah, exactly. All right. You can be that guy that goes at night.
You like to do that, right, Tim?
But,
He hates
yeah,
me now.
exactly. But, well, we'll get you a bed, it's in the budget. But really, yeah, for the direction piece, you can have that board, but for the real administrative and managerial type pieces, I think that dotted line.
Policy and
Yeah.
so forth should come from the boards themselves.
Yes,
Right,
policy
exactly.
comes from the boards.
Right.
And the goals,
Right.
all that.
Yeah, but I think like things like goals and the policy should come from the boards, but I think things like goals should come from this combined, like, you know, maybe it's the chairs of each of these groups that maybe meet quarterly or something, right?
Yeah.
But the goals can't come from each board individually, they have to be
Exactly.
one list.
right.
75 pages of goals, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a big reason why we came tonight is to get the board's support behind that. not really solve it tonight, because we want to get input from
Right.
the other
Yeah.
boards.
Right.
I
We
would
don't want them to think we're trying to push it too hard.
I would hazard to say that you have some strong interest from the board, and
I'd be
And
happy
s-
to be
and
a part
support.
of, like,
Would
maybe
you
there's
want
a
that?
smaller group that gets together and just kind of flushes it out with them. I'd be,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think there
Be
needs
happy to be a
this-
part of
There
that.
really needs to be a task group
yeah.
Yeah,
to
I-
orchestrate this.
Yeah.
Do the research necessary, what are other towns doing, what works, what doesn't work?
Yeah.
What's the role of, you've got elected boards, you've got appointed boards. Are there issues with
Do-
how you deal with that?
And do we have to rewrite our bylaws as
Yeah,
well?
yeah.
I mean, we are doing a bylaw review, but
Right. But this may be
separately,
something
but
specific,
this would
yeah.
be something else. And, yeah, I mean, and it's not gonna, I don't think it's gonna happen before FY, our next fiscal year. So what I would also hazard to say
Is there
is,
any hiring, well, there's no hiring we're planning on doing that this would be impacted.
no,
Well, the opportunity came up, right, because George
Yes.
Whitfield, our administrator,
Mhm.
is pending his retirement now for several years, but this year should be it, based on what he
This year
said.
meaning this spring or meaning this coming fiscal year is his last?
This summer.
He told us the end of fiscal 20, the beginning of
Yeah.
fiscal 21.
Yeah, it
If I
would,
were really
That's-
smart, I would know which years you were talking about when you said.
It's next
That's
summer.
June.
We're in 20 now, right?
It's next summer and next fall.
June or July.
June or July.
I don't like that fiscal year stuff either.
Yeah, I know,
but
ticks
it-
me
It
off,
seems 1 year advance from where it should be.
yes.
But it would really be ideal to get this person in and settled before everybody retires. Not that Sylvia's ever gonna leave, because I hope she never does. But, she's getting to a point where she's gotta be thinking about retirement, same thing with Linda, right? Obviously George is, so,
I am.
but, yeah, I know, I am too, I'm friggin' 30 years off though. But, at least, but, to get that knowledge and expertise transferred to this new person as well, I think that'd be huge,
Well,
So-
as it was pointed out by George, though, that when he came in, there was a consultant here. There was nobody to bring him along. And this is a new thing, so I'm not sure,
Well, we may not make it for George,
yeah,
right?
I
But
don't think we'll make it.
No,
No,
but-
but we would make it before the other two.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
and then
right,
they
right.
can learn
Yes.
the planning board area.
That's
they
right.
Focus on that more, and then if someone else leaves, then they can move over and
Right.
focus.
Right,
Exactly.
exactly.
Phase
So I
it
would
in.
suggest that we ask Tim to put together a group that's, maybe 2 people from each of the boards,
Can I just make a,
including the personnel board.
no, what I like to do, if it's okay, because I've been proposing to the individuals I've met from the boards, that I would like to come to their board and give them my idea. So I'll try to do that over the next, I don't know, December, early January, and then let Tim know, and I've had a chance to touch base with everyone, and assuming that they're, because I like to ask them first, and if
I
they're
thought
well.
you had already done that, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
You came in
That's
late, I
what
know.
you missed, yeah.
I've had some preliminary discussions with some individuals from the boards they were super nice about it, willing to hear more and work with me, but I think I need to go to their full boards, and then maybe they could pick someone or 2 people, and I would love if one of you could be involved too.
Yeah, and Tim, and I think personnel board should be involved.
I've met with Vanessa, also, and she, I can't make it to their meeting in December, so I have to go in January to update them on the idea.
I certainly think it's a worthwhile idea, and I do think also, this is the time to be doing it, when there's already going to be upheaval, so it's hopefully, it'll be a little less, and yet, in a way that it can be, like, ramped up, and so there's not, all at once.
The one thing from our point of view, it would be great if we could, when we get this group going, make a deadline for them, because if it just drags
Yeah,
on and
yeah,
it doesn't
yeah,
go
no, we
anywhere,
do
we're
that.
gonna be the ones without a person, I
No,
guess.
yeah,
The
right.
biggest benefit of this is we no longer have to have a committee called the FAG.
That's what?
The Town Hall Advisory Group, whenever a big project comes in, there's the FAG that gets together. It is these
Yeah.
groups.
I want to say, I think that part actually works. I think the directors have good relationships with each other, and they do coordinate on the applications. From my perspective, that's a piece that works.
Yeah, they do now.
It's a lot what you were saying, like you'd have to think of like a year and a half if you thought you might have some extra time that you could help someone with. It's so cumbersome.
Yeah, it may make sense to talk to John Mativier too, the building inspector, because I know when he first came in, you know, one of the things that, you know, the other boards were saying is it's great because he says, oh, you might have a conscom issue, you might have, you know, talk to them too. And I think, yeah, he plays a big role
He does,
in
and
a lot of this, so, yeah, maybe getting him.
I would think anything land use.
Related,
Mm.
yeah.
so, okay, well, so I guess the question is, could John be that person then? Because he also does, you know, he does have the,
You mean the director?
yeah,
Oh,
Well, I think we should define the position first.
yeah.
but
I
I'm
don't think
just,
we wanna find
yeah.
the person yet.
Yeah.
I think we
Yeah.
wanna
Jumping
know
ahead
We-
here.
what we want
Yeah.
them to do.
So what we'll do is I'll get in touch with the other boards and then let Tim know, or do you want me to come back here?
Tim could report
Yeah. I
back
think-
if,
Yeah.
unless
Yeah.
there's some
you don't have to come back to us. I
great
mean,
new idea that
But-
comes forward.
And if there's real action that has to be taken, then yes, come back.
Yeah.
But-
But in the meantime, if it's just information,
But we also don't want to leave them hanging without a person, and so I
Right.
guess the question is, you know, if this is not probably going to happen until next year. So what do you want to do in that case for your, do you want to hire a consultant? You will have money because you won't have somebody in the position.
I think what we should do is we should really double down on that and make sure that make a few more calls to make sure there's someone we're comfortable with that exists.
Sure.
Because there's 4 towns in the Southwest that have a consultant that they've had, and we've talked to them about how it works. But we should make sure there's a couple candidates up here that,
Would be available.
yeah, that would be available.
That's the hard part.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
But I also want to commend you guys for
Yeah.
coming up.
Yes,
new thinking is
For,
great.
for
yes,
thinking about this.
yes, new fresh
mean-
eyes.
It's, I mean, I really don't mean it a criticism of how people have worked in the past,
No, it's
because it
not.
isn't.
Not taking it any at all like that, and as you said, given the structure they were handed, you know.
All right,
Okay.
thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, 7:30, continued fiscal 20 tax classification hearing. On November 12th, 2019, I read the legal notice of a public hearing to determine the percentages of the local tax levy to be borne by each class of real and personal property for the fiscal year 2020. And the Board of Selectmen voted to open the public hearing, and it was subsequently moved and voted to continue that hearing to tonight, November 26th at 7:30. This is the continuation of that hearing. And I would like to invite the Board of Assessors. Okay, the board didn't come, just you, huh? Okay. To join us, to provide all the information and data relevant to making such a determination and the fiscal effect of the available alternatives.
So, but my purpose here tonight is, the purpose tonight is setting the fiscal year 2020 property tax rate, and that the board approve a residential factor of 1, establishing a uniform tax rate with no differences between commercial and residential. And the board not grant an open space discount, and not adopt a residential exemption, and not adopt a small commercial exemption for fiscal year 2020. And I'm also here to inform you that our excess levy capacity for fiscal year 2020 is $1,864,422. And, yeah, so, do you have any questions?
So I just have a quick
You
question.
Okay,
I just don't remember the open space.
okay,
one.
so
Yeah.
we
Was
don't
that-
have any open space.
Okay.
And like about 10 years ago, yeah, because the DOR doesn't want that land use code.
Yeah.
And for some odd reason, and they told me to get rid of it, and I did, so I think they keep it in this language to protect themselves from getting that land use code.
I'm just not remembering it from previous.
That's
No,
all
we-
it is.
We haven't had it in previous.
So if you look at my recap sheet, under 201, the land use code for open space is 201, there's no property there at all. So it is what it is.
But is having this in here new?
No, it
Having it in
happened
the
about
motion?
10 years ago,
Okay,
and the DOR requires it.
okay.
Why? Since we don't
I'm
have
with you. I
any, I
don't
don't
remember that language.
understand it. So,
Not surprising, I don't remember.
No.
I just don't remember.
yeah.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
okay.
The rate's gonna be $18.36.
And how does
Which
that
is
compare to what we have this year?
7 cents.
7 cents over,
7 cents, correct,
it's 18.29.
right now.
For a total of 28,573,388.
So are you ready for a motion?
Wait a second. Oh, this is the values. We have $1 billion of value.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is the staggering thing, 98.22% of our tax,
We have less than
residential.
We have less than 2% commercial.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matthew, do you want a commercial tax rate?
Maybe all of it.
Does it benefit me?
No.
Where's our industrial?
What are you looking,
Is that the fourth line down?
the industrial is,
$1.1 million.
Assurance Technology on South Street, yeah.
Is that
Okay.
it?
Yeah, and, yeah, that building's worth a lot of money in this town, so they have a, hefty tax bill. So, to switch, say 7 cents, their tax rate would go up to $20.20. It just doesn't make sense in this town, and historically, we've never split the tax rate.
Yeah, no.
Dear God, we don't want to drive out the business.
Yeah, there would only be a few people that, would be affected, and then, it's just, they're paying on the building.
Yeah.
About 21,600.
Yeah, I didn't bring this with me,
Yeah,
but,
21,617 would be with the industrial.
Would be the increase if you went to a industrial or commercial.
right,
do you
so
call it?
if you went to 18, to save the taxpayers 3 cents,
Yeah.
the business would go up to $20.20. So it just doesn't, yeah, $20.20
Per thousand.
per thousand. And I just feel like it would be a little bit unfair to,
See, how much are we saving that year?
not a lot.
Yeah. So
It would
this
just
is
hurt the
7,
small-
and when you say it went up 7 cents, it's 7
we just
cents
raised the
per
price of a cup of
thousand
coffee.
evaluations. Okay.
Correct. So, yeah, I just feel that it would be unfair to, hit the commercial properties in this town.
Yeah.
Pay a little more. And I feel like they're paying enough as it is, so.
So that would be 161,200 from commercial
Commercial is
at 2020.
146,516 would be what the levy is on the commercial.
Right, so saving 20,000 or so.
Yeah, I think she said 23.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you explain what the right-hand top box is? What-
Small
what does
commercial exemption?
Total CNI value net exemptions mean?
Where are you talking about?
Yeah, right where
Small,
you're
under,
pointing.
yeah.
Commercial exemption,
What CNI mean, I guess? is-
commercial and industrial value.
Ah, okay, just
Okay.
those two added.
Net of exemptions. Okay, and since there's no exemptions, it's,
Yeah, we don't.
it just takes 7, 9, and 1 and adds them together. Okay.
So say that again, so oh, I see, here's the tax rate, 1836.
Right.
Okay,
And
That's
that's
7 cents more than it was.
what it was.
Yeah.
a factor of 1. That's a factor of 1, a residential factor of 1.
What does that mean?
Across the board.
Oh,
In other words,
Everybody's gonna be taxed
right,
$18.
the same rate, yeah,
Same
yeah,
rate.
yeah,
Nobody's getting a discounted
right.
rate on that.
And I actually would think the DOR wouldn't allow it. I think they would be like, there really is no reason to do the shift. But, and then would have to go to town meeting to shift.
Yeah.
I don't,
And
Yeah, there's not enough of it.
No, right.
it's just not.
Not worth it.
It doesn't make sense, and they're paying their fair share.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
And just for my benefit, because I'm new to this part of
Yeah.
things, the residential, not adopt a residential exemption.
So, yeah, we can't do that here either, because every single taxpayer in,
Boston,
every single
Boston-
taxpayer in town would get the exemption, because it's meant for rental properties. Yeah.
Say like Martha's Vineyard, one of the bigger town doesn't have it, but Vineyard Haven does, so if somebody
sometimes it's
Sometimes.
significant.
Yeah,
You know.
but I just
Yeah.
meant, I was just thinking about the,
Brookline
No,
has
actually, I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
residential, because they have a lot of renters.
Well, maybe they do.
Got it.
Kind of promote the homeowner.
They give the homeowner
But I know-
the ability of doing that.
Yeah.
some
nice.
kind of a break,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But we'd have to do
Then-
it for every single
Right.
household.
And you,
Right, right. Same with when you have a
We
large
can't afford to,
commercial
No,
yeah,
it's invested in.
yeah, we can't afford to do it.
Just think, we could raise the tax rate and then give everybody an exemption, so that would, they would feel so good. Yes, please.
I move that for the purpose of setting the fiscal 2020 property tax rate, that the board approve a residential factor of 1, thereby establishing a uniform tax rate with no differences between commercial and residential property tax. Should that say industrial? Commercial, residential, and industrial?
Yes.
So no difference
Yes.
between commercial, industrial,
Correct.
and residential property tax rates, and that the board not grant an open space discount, not adopt a residential exemption, and not adopt a small commercial exemption for fiscal year 2020. Further, we acknowledge that the Board of Assessors has informed the Board of Selectmen, somewhere in here, that the excess levy capacity for fiscal year 2020 is $1,864,422.
Second.
Correct.
I just have to say the P, because that's in my motion.
Okay.
It's just a.
No,
a
Actually-
random letter
actually,
P on
that's-
that.
I don't have that.
Oh, you
I
don't?
have that.
Okay, and just for, the audience at home and for anybody who doesn't know what an excess levy capacity
That's on-
is, I think, well,
You have your levy limit and, you factor in, you have prior year levy limit and then your new growth would be added to that and 2.5 is automatic onto that. And then you get, your net levy limit and then any capital exclusions overrides would be part of that. Your debt exclusion, and you have a maximal allowable levy. So the difference between what we're levying in taxes for 28,573,388 and what our total maximum allowable levy is, that difference is that 1,864,422.
And that's that 2.5%.
So you have that capacity that you actually could have levied and taxed up to prior to having any type of debt exclusion, you know, capital exclusion or
So
anything
does the
like that.
$240,000 for the tower come out of this? Is that the same number?
No.
You know,
No.
the one that we just, the
no, because
communications tower.
that was a debt exclusion.
When you
No, but-
borrow a debt exclusion, that's kind of, you know, on the other side of
No,
the line,
but,
it's like.
but we're not allowed to make it a part of the exclusion, right?
Right, that's what the determination was.
tower.
There had to be a subsequent ballot vote to make that, to
Right.
exclude that debt,
Okay.
that portion of the debt.
But if we
Oh, I
don't,
see.
does that impact this number?
No.
No, because
No,
this is last year's number,
last
really.
year's number.
Okay.
It will
Well, you
impact
still
next
fill in,
year's
it's whether,
number.
because you have levy capacity that, like, you could do anything and not exclude it and stay within your levy limit and tax it, or you exclude it and then you go outside of,
Right, we just tried to
For that,
exclude it,
right.
but it was rejected,
Right.
right?
and they just wanted to, yeah.
Right. So it seemed like it would come out of this number, but that's okay. Either way, we still have money.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
no, we
why-
don't have money.
no,
No, we do
but
not
a
have
lot of
money.
towns- You're right, a lot
we have
of towns
taxing
are
authority.
struggling because they're at their maximum
Right.
allowable levy. So they have no room, so everything they do has to be, you know, a capital exclusion, a debt exclusion outside of, or they do a general override,
Right.
which then builds your
The
levy
base.
further and stays on. Where if you do exclusion, it's only for that 1 year that you're excluding, either that whole capital that you're buying or your debt exclusion. But if you do a general override, that goes on and that stays. So if a town is close to their levy limit, they might do a general override for the operating of, you know, whatever it is, 300,000 or whatever, and that stays. And then next year, your levy's gone up that 300 plus your 2.5, and it just builds it more. So override,
That's if
you're
keep
very, I
voting
mean,
it,
you will
voting
not have to do a general override.
Right.
Right.
What, and so this number, what this number says is that we're in a fairly healthy state, that
You have a-
if something really big
Right.
came,
Right.
that we really did have to pay for,
Yep.
we would have the ability to tax
Yeah, mhm.
Without having to do an
without
override.
having to
Go for
do
override.
a override.
You could go up to that 1
Right.
million.
Although we would be loath to do it, because then,
Yeah,
yeah,
You always want some levy capacity going in too, because, you know, sometimes numbers, you know, Not so much with you, but it can with, you know, the charter schools are might be in or out.
Yeah. So we have a motion and a second, and I muddied the waters. I apologize by asking for that discussion, but all those in favor of this motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that was unanimous.
And I
Thank
have
you.
to have you sign this.
Yeah, this form that you're signing here, the classification tax allocation, is you're basically signing and attesting that on 11/26/19 at 7:30, Carlisle Town Hall, and a public hearing, you should adopt the percentages.
I need a motion to close the hearing, in fact.
I move the hearing on the, what do we call it?
Tax
The
classification.
hearing be closed.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's it. Great.
You all have a nice Thanksgiving.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Yeah.
and you too.
Now that you've gotten this out of the way, I'm sure that'll
It'll help.
help.
Yes, it will.
Now get the tax bills out tonight.
Yes. Oh, now you just ruined ours. Shucks.
I'll see you later.
Okay. While you are here, could we skip along, and I'm sorry, but just 1 minute, we'll get to you. We're going to just skip up to 7, town government organization, and look at the investment policy, which was in there,
So
while
it's-
you're still here.
You have a policy with your OPEB and your trust, and the old investment policy statement, when my predecessor here was Carrie back in October 16th, she went to the finance committee. At that point, your investment policy, you had a defunct investment committee that, my understanding, no longer really exists, which has kind of tied the hands of being able to do some investment with some general funds and long-term funds. So there's some capital sitting there that needs to be invested, but if you don't have the investment committee to authorize that, you can't do anything. So this policy to adopt basically turns it over to myself as the treasurer to have that ability to invest, and it's pretty boilerplate. It's basically references all the legal chapters that are basically 44, 54, 55A and B. And it's just good practice of where you can invest your funds and how to
So-
manage them. So I'm requesting that you adopt the general fund's long-term investment policy statement here within. And
So where did this come, where does this originate, this document?
this originated actually, Bartholomew.
So another
they-
town, or?
Bartholomew worked with Carrie before.
I see.
And then they did this. This is, like I said, pretty boilerplate.
Okay. I did have question on page 5 and 6, under ethics, it's 3C, so about 5 pages in. The treasurer and assistant treasurer shall refrain from any personal activity that may conflict with the proper execution of the investment program, or which should impair or appear to impair ability to make impartial investment decisions. Said individuals shall disclose to the finance director any material financial interest. Well, you were both the treasurer and the finance
Right,
director.
right, so I
this
just-
doesn't work.
To myself.
So that needs to be
Person,
cleaned
yeah.
up and fixed.
Okay.
And the same problem on the next page under reporting requirements. On a semi-annual basis, a report containing the following information will be prepared by the treasurer and distributed to the finance director as appropriate. So there again, that needs to be fixed.
Okay.
Yeah, where does that's the question I had, is where?
I would be probably prepared by the treasurer / finance director and therefore distributed, because I hold both. And this form is done by the treasurer.
Yeah, who would that go to then? Who would that report go to?
We could probably put it into the town administrator, I would guess. I can ask them who they distribute it to.
Where's
I
the
would-
mechanism where we learn kind of where it goes?
Yeah,
Well, if any report out, I would report to you, but we can put it actually in there, you know. but
so
do it-
maybe
I can
one
put it to report
distribute it to the
Yep,
selectmen, to the board of
absolutely.
selectmen, or
I can
whatever
make
we
that
end up
yep,
calling
yep.
ourselves.
On a semi-annual basis, report and form prepared by the treasurer
I would say
and
quarterly.
distributed to the,
I would say quarterly.
And so instead of as appropriate, we want that semi-annual, I see.
Quarterly, I would say.
You want quarterly. And then on the treasurer,
the other
You
one,
should
which-
disclose to the town administrator or to us?
Whichever
What do we
you
want?
feel.
For the material financial interest.
Sorry, the board,
Right.
you're the appointing authority.
I think
for
so
the-
to us
right,
too.
yep.
So you disclose that to us. Or just BOS. I
So
didn't-
on the last page where it says I blank treasurer of the town of Carlisle, you need to say somewhere in here that the treasurer is the same as the finance director, right? I mean, because you don't really hold the title, or are we
No, she's-
appointing
I do,
you
yeah.
as-
I hold the title of finance director, treasurer / collector.
you
I
do?
hold all,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that's
Okay.
fine there. That's why, yeah. It's just lots of times the finance director is your town accountant or something else like that, so they probably boil paid it
So-
off of that. And this is the one he had before, so
And
it should have
where
picked
are we
up
gonna
on
put
that.
this, is this policy going in our policy book, or is this in some other financial policy book? Where are we putting, where is this baby going?
Live.
Going to live, yeah.
I think
Well-
it's in the selectmen's.
I think this is in us, so then rather than having this sign-off sheet, seems to me we just,
Adopted.
We just adopt it. I have to sign this to go back to the
Oh, this is
bank
something-
once it's done
To
for
the
them to
financial
have.
advisors, yeah.
that We've adopted it and I'm signing it and then I'm responsible.
Okay, so that's a different
That's a different-
matter,
Yeah,
but
that's
we-
a different matter,
okay.
yep. But it will be part of the town's general policies. And I can have him make that amendment and bring it back to you.
Yeah, make those changes.
yeah,
I just have some more questions, if I may.
yeah.
So this is allowing, this means that you can decide what US treasuries, right? Can be bought or sold. But it also, because it's in the following instruments, but then it goes into that,
Section are you on, sorry?
I'm on C.
See, just on
So
diversification.
you can open up a CD, you can open up a bank account or a checking account, secured or unsecured, but also you can invest in preferred stock.
There's certain, but stocks that's approved under the Mass General laws. See, before, when this was done, when Carrie was on, she liquidated a lot of funds because they weren't being invested off the legal list. So this would all be everything on the legal list that all treasurers under these Mass General laws invest in. Where if you go off the legal list, you're not using it, that gets a little more dangerous, because you could do stocks that would be maybe more volatile or whatever. So when you work with Bartholomew or these, under these Mass General laws, it's very strict on what stocks or treasury bonds or whatever that you can actually invest in. So I would take their guidance under these Mass General laws and not step off of that.
Yeah.
Where
so-
before there wasn't a policy. and
Not at
this
all
thing,
that I'm
just
not
like that,
trusting
yeah.
or not,
No,
or
no,
all,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I think this is normally designed that there's the finance director and the treasurer who are working together on this. And so we don't have that here.
No, a lot of towns don't even have a finance director.
Uh-huh.
We didn't have the title finance director. We had a town accountant, and, you do the pseudo hat, somebody always plays that role. But usually it's always a role of a treasurer, and if a treasurer, I think what he realizes, there was a finance director in this town. So if you have a treasurer, lots of times the structure is a finance director, and the treasurer, the collector, the accountant, the assessor would report
Okay.
under that.
So are we gonna then
So the
substitute?
structure is, I'm the treasurer, collector, and the finance director.
Right, but not the
or another
accountant,
town-
so
but
could
not
we
the
put the accountant in here rather than? I think the idea is that there's two people, right?
Right, two heads.
Yeah, but I don't know that the accountant has a
No.
statutory role
No.
to.
No.
Nor would she have the
Nor she has-
expertise.
saying that
investments.
accountants is one
Segregation
that
of no, lots of times an accountant is the
Could
finance
be the
director. So you would do it as an accountant, you do it as the finance director. It's just turning the report over. I think that's what his general thing was on that. And I could get more if you'd rather wait, I can get more clarification from Chris at Bartholomew. This is pretty boilerplate that you took it. The treasurer is the one that usually invests and does the money. I can turn it over to, since I'm the treasurer and the finance director, we can take that finance director part out and turn it over to the board of selectmen.
Okay, that'd
Because
be
if you
fine.
didn't have a finance director, you'd be turning it over to the board.
So
Yeah, that
wherever
would
it
be
says
fine.
finance
Whoever says
director.
finance director, we'll take it out
put-
and
and put it-
replace selectmen.
Okay, that makes some
Yeah,
sense.
makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I understand that after reading that there, I'm like, yep, I brought that in today.
Okay.
And have we ever had this policy before, a policy before?
The
the
old
town had
policy that you had
Yeah.
before had
Yes.
it had an investment committee, from my understanding.
There was a
That was
committee,
it.
this was when Larry Barton was the finance director. He worked pretty closely with the
Right,
investment
right.
committee, and I think they developed the policy, actually,
They had a
that the
policy
board adopted then.
which they
But
would go through, and it
the
was.
financial
defined.
advisors are recommending a number of changes with this policy.
Okay.
And then some of the things that Larry was investing in was off of, I believe.
Yeah, off the
Right.
list
They
of what
brought
you
that
could
in, which-
invest in, yeah.
But they had an investment committee that was advising on this, where this is putting it back into that the treasurer has the ownership of working with them and doing it, but off of working strictly within the Mass General law, and then reporting back to you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so, we need a,
I'll have-
you wanna,
We needed updated.
You want an updated thing to-
Yeah, I'll.
no, we just need to adopt it, and we could adopt it.
You can adopt it as amended, and I can send
amended.
it over to you.
Send a clean.
No,
Exactly.
and then she
Later.
signs
Yeah.
it, she does
And I'll
that,
send a clean copy to Tim before I sign it and send it back for him for those changes.
because this is for a bank, so that she can actually do these.
Yeah, and then I have to
these
sign it to the
investments,
bank
otherwise
that it's
she has to wait.
adopted, the date you adopted it,
I move
and.
that the Board of Selectmen adopt the Town of Carlisle General Funds and Long-Term Funds Investment Policy Statement as amended tonight.
Second?
I'll have to check how the OPEB and long-term funds one is. That was opened in June of 2018, and there's a policy on that. I'll be curious how that reads.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, do you want my underlines or underscores or anything?
If you have them, I love them, because then I can give those to him to
Yeah,
make the changes.
I don't have the ones that, I don't have all the Board of Selectmen, that, I don't have, just the two that I mentioned.
Oh, but we'll just go through, and he'll just funnel in,
Right.
you
Yeah.
can replace
Right.
finance director with Board of
Yeah.
Selectmen.
Okay,
Perfect.
thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Same
And
to
you
you.
too.
Okay. License renewals, 8:00, look at that, right on time.
One and only licensee.
How you doing, Matt?
Yeah.
Good evening.
Hi,
How are you?
Nice to meet you.
So, and while you're here, also, let us also, do we have to do anything about the Christmas? Yes, a motion approving the rescheduled date for the Christmas tree lighting while you're.
Right, no,
Take
yeah, we
care of that at the
told
same
Matt to
time.
go ahead and
Yes, I
make
know,
the
but let's
arrangements,
have our,
but the
let's not-
board should officially, yeah,
we'll,
vote that.
we will officially,
It's gonna be December 10th.
December 10th, yeah.
Okay, I move that the Christmas tree lighting be held on December 10th as revised.
Second.
good. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Knock yourself out.
Nice and easy. Find the switch.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, annual license renewals. This looks pretty routine,
Pretty straightforward.
straightforward.
The second one here is to be, so you don't see this.
Oh, the
The
carry-in?
second one here is for you to be able to sell, right? The third one is the BYOB.
Correct.
The first one is the patio?
So that would
the first
be
one?
off-premise, yeah, patio, yeah, I guess outside of the building, within the fence.
The circle.
Right.
I'm just kidding.
Yep.
Yes. Well, it's not really.
It's not to be drank on site.
The first
Oh,
one,
the package store.
That's a-
Means,
Okay, so the
Yes.
first one's retail purchase,
yes.
And then this one here is, it can be drank.
and the third one is the
What, the third one
consumption on
is-
so the
property.
first one is you can buy and take it home.
And take it off the premises
that
and
one.
take
You
it
can't
home.
open it.
Yes.
Oh, okay, got
The
it.
second one is the,
Basically to sell food that has expiration dates on it.
the common,
Is that a common issue?
yeah, food, yeah, to sell food.
Thanks.
wait, this one allows him to, can I see this? Sorry, I gave mine away.
It goes hand in hand with your,
Okay,
these two are usually all together.
and then the last one is that, the BYOB,
Yes.
which means buy it and then bring it over to the other part of the building.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're separating out each one, okay.
Well, because they're three separate
Yeah,
licenses.
okay. It just had a.
I just remembered two before, but.
Yeah, it looks like that's,
And that's,
okay.
that's because the third one came later, 'cause, you know, anyway.
Just watch, yeah.
Shall I make a motion?
Well,
Okay.
I just wanted, if I may, so these hours are the same?
Yeah, nothing's changed since last year, correct?
Get the sign off of the chief efficiency.
Yep, I saw that.
Sign-offs.
And the building department and the fire chief.
Okay, sorry.
You could also raise something in the discussion period.
I could have.
Yes. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the off-premise license renewal for Berry Barn LLC, doing business as Fern's Country Store, located at 8 Lowell Street, Carlisle, Mass. 01741.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve a common victualler's license to Berry Barn LLC, doing business as Fern's Country Store, located at 8 Lowell Street, Carlisle, Mass. 01741.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to issue a carry-in liquor license to Berry Barn LLC, doing business as Fern's Country Store, located at 8 Lowell Street, Carlisle, Mass. 01741.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, thank you.
Pleasure doing
you.
business with you, sir.
As always.
Yeah, thanks, you too.
Transfer station
Okey dokey.
operations.
Nathan, I hope you'll chime in on this too.
Oh, I never do that.
No.
This is really just an update, and also an opportunity to hear back from you all if you have any input you'd like to offer. So we have a working group that Tim set up that is composed of myself, Gary Davis, Tim, Lana Zamaro, and Nathan Brown. And we have been discussing the transfer station. And one particular thing that we have zeroed in on is the swap shed. Because while we're looking at everything, there's some things that we think we can move on fairly quickly, and this is one of them. So current situation is that while the transfer station is open, you know, it's regular Tuesday, Thursday, 10 a.m. to 7, and Saturday, 8 to 5 p.m., anyone can come in and drop, any resident with a valid sticker can come in and drop things at the swap shed, virtually anything except paint and hazardous waste. And similarly, anyone can take things out of the swap shed, and it's throughout the whole period that the transfer station is open. What we have discovered in conversations with Gary Davis is that a lot of what it ends up in the swap shed gets thrown into the solid waste, and ends up, obviously, then being something that we get charged for. Plus, there's a lot of waste of perfectly usable items. So one of the things we talked about is that there's often, as closing time gets closer at the end of the day, you have a lot of people that are coming in at the last minute and putting a lot of things into the swap shed or leaving them next door. And there's just not enough time for other people that might be interested in taking those items to have a chance to look at them and take them because it's so close to closing time. So what we're suggesting, what we want to do is move up or establish a time at which the drop-off closes 2 hours before the closing of the actual transfer station. So that that would mean on Tuesday and Thursday, it would close at 5 p.m. So from 5 p.m. on, you would not be allowed to come in and add anything to the swap shed or put anything next door to it where the metal and large household goods go. But anybody that is there is continues to be welcome to go in and take things. Hoping that that will help lessen how much stuff goes into the trash, because what happens now is the shed is open until closing hours. Whatever is there the next morning, the transfer station staff go in, they do their best to recycle what they can. They put, metal into the appropriate bins, move the appliances, but they end up with a lot of things that, what's left ends up, they just take and put in the trash. And again, there's not a hard measurement on this, but Gary's estimate was that about half of what is left at the swap shop, both outside and inside, ends up going into the solid waste trash. So we're trying, we'd like to do this to see if that can reduce how much goes into the trash. A couple other things that we want to do in conjunction with setting that drop-off closing time 2 hours earlier than the actual closing of the transfer station. So a couple other things would be to encourage, I call them shoppers in this little note, but, encourage people that want to take things to do so, to eliminate the prohibition on reselling items. Our thinking was,
Rather get resold than thrown away.
right,
absolutely.
exactly. And it used to be, I think, a while back that we had some difficulty with, outside folks coming in and, I guess, take haulers maybe, or taking a lot of stuff that was gonna be resold, and that's what sort of precipitated that sign and the general policy that things were not for resale, but that's not happening, and we think we wanna just encourage people to take whatever they think they can use or sell, rather than have it go in the solid waste.
I think can I might just?
Yeah.
I think our assumption is that, particularly, my assumption, not even assumption, just in talking to people in town, they don't realize that the stuff is just thrown away
Right.
the next day.
Right.
So, for instance, last Saturday, not this weekend, but the weekend before, I went there at about 4:45, and it was just, stuff was just like falling out of the swap shed, and there was so much stuff on the side, and there were trucks still there dropping things off. And I think the swap shed is really great, and, it's wonderful, but I think that what it does is it gives people a good feeling about getting rid of stuff. But if you're dropping it off that late, it's just gonna be thrown away or recycled. And so a lot of this is just letting people know this, as well as cutting it off earlier. And I think that, at the beginning, I think, there may not have been as much stuff, and so it was like, oh, don't resell it, this is just for the benefit of the towns, but it's actually a negative to the residents of town if we're having to throw that stuff away, because we're having to pay to throw it away.
Right.
Isn't all now gonna get thrown away anyway?
I'm
If
worried
you
that
arrive
people-
after 5 o'clock, people on Tuesdays and Thursdays, people who work for a living, who can't get there during the day, have to get there after 5 o'clock, okay? If they have something to be recycled, okay, now they're gonna have to throw it away. They're not
Well,
gonna take
when
it
you
home
say
again.
recycled, you mean that can't go into one of the bins?
No, I
Something
mean,
that they wanna put in the swap
it will go into the
But when you say
Trash.
recycle, in other words, if they have a bunch of stuffed animals, or if they have a dresser.
stuff that they would normally leave in the swap shed.
Yeah.
That somebody might actually take, now will just get thrown away.
But
Well,
if
or
they're
they'd
showing
have
up
to
at 6:45
wait.
anyway, it's
But
gonna be
if
thrown
they're showing
away.
up at 5, I mean, granted, it's.
Yeah, they show up
the
at
like-
5
the
and they
like-
can
I mean,
still leave it.
The problem is that there's no time, there's no time for people to come and look. And so the one solution would be, don't throw it away the next morning, wait for 2 days when when
Yeah.
the transfer station is open again.
Well, but the problem is, as Nathan was, explaining or describing, there can be so much stuff there that if they let it build up, then it's very difficult for anybody to come in and see even what's there. And, I mean, the other thing it means is that you have to wait till Saturday. If you're a working person and you have stuff that you wanna leave at the swap shed and you can't get there before 5 o'clock on a Tuesday or Thursday, you can bring it Saturday up until 3 o'clock.
Now, the point you brought up is the point we had the hardest time with when we were talking about
Right.
it.
Yeah,
Is what do you do about Tuesdays and Thursdays?
Yeah.
Because we're not giving anybody, 5 o'clock is still too early.
Right.
yeah.
But is there a way, because of where the swap shed's located, right? Is there a way to block off the trash and the?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, and then, so
Block
allow
off the
people
what?
And
to
let-
block off the trash, right? I think you can cover those, the hoppers, right? And allow people to just come in and hit the swap shed, because they can lock up all the cans. You can lock up, I'm pretty sure you can lock up those trash, or you just compact them.
You mean for after hours?
Yeah, so you let people just have the swap shed be,
Open to come in
not
and look at.
24/7, but have the
You might get
swap
people
shed.
just dropping off their garbage there. I mean, Gary was saying there's already people just leaving their
Yeah,
garbage.
no,
Leave
I
stuff at
understand
the
that, but
gate.
like, if you're a schmuck
to
that's
the-
gonna do that, you're a schmuck that's gonna do that. You know what I mean? I mean, to put it bluntly, right? But if you leave the swap shed open on a day, just for people to come and browse, not drop stuff off, right?
Who's gonna stop the drop off though? Who's gonna stop the drop off?
I don't know,
Because it's not
well,
staffed
but-
during those
Right, but
times.
this is the whole thing, you really gotta make it an honor system, right? And if Carlisle is truly doing this to benefit each other, right? If it's truly a swap shed, you try it and see what happens. If you show up the next day and there's 4 times as much crap, then yeah, you stop it, right? But,
I just worry about people being in there and any liability or whatever, just if there's nobody staffing it.
but the whole thing is, everything's blocked off except the swap shed, right? You literally just leave the swap shed.
Well, you'd have to move it, I
But you'd
think,
have to
in order
have
do
the
it.
gate open and then you have, but you're saying various bins would be closed.
Yeah, all the bins are locked, right? I mean, you can lock all the bins.
Yeah.
And then you can cover the hoppers for the trash, right? And then people drive in, they take the stuff and they go out. You don't necessarily have to have it open, excuse me, 9 to 5. You have it, shortened hours. I mean, during the day, because you want it during daylight, right? So I mean, now it's dark at 4, so you'd shut it
Right.
at 3 or something, right? And I mean, you wouldn't necessarily get a ton of extra, but it gives that, to Alan's point, really, you're losing from 5 to 7, right? I mean, that stuff is going in the trash, because people, if they want to get rid of it, they want to get rid of it.
Yeah,
They're not
they
gonna say,
brought
I'm gonna
it, they
take it
brought
and
it
set
there,
Right.
expecting to put
Right.
it in the swap shed. The swap shed's not open, so now they're just gonna throw it in the trash.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, because I mean, people typically
the
have
same
that
thing-
sense of urgency.
Well,
now
we
if
would
they get
have
rid
to,
of this.
I mean, part of what we recognize we'd have to do is a really thorough, publicity education about the change. And people would have to, bring things on Saturday if they
Yeah,
can't get
to
them
be
there.
clear, we were not asking for the go or no-go now that we were
No,
gonna
right,
implement
right,
it
right.
next week.
No, we
We're
understand
talking
that.
about,
Yeah,
we're
no,
talking
but-
about early next year thing, right?
Feedback,
Yeah,
that's good.
but I
Yeah.
also see that, people, Saturday, they start cleaning the garage, they're sorting it, and, oh my God, we've gotta take this stuff
Right,
to
you
the
gotta get
dump
it to the
now,
dump, yeah.
and we'd like to put the usable, and it, time gets away from people
Right.
too.
Right.
Yeah,
And
the
to
other
think that-
problem is there's tons of stuff in the swap shed nobody wants.
Right,
Well, that's the other part of it. So
that
another
is-
piece here is educating people about Baystate Textiles, which I didn't realize that, they have bins now set up right next to the Goodwill bins.
Yes.
And they will take a really broad array
All the
of
stuffed animals my
linens,
dogs
stuffed
have
animals,
shredded.
shoes, leather, and a lot of that's, and it can be in completely trashed condition.
Right.
And they will take
Yeah,
it
they just
because
shred it anyway, yeah.
right, yeah, and.
Well, they recycle-
They do
actually,
3
they
different
sort.
grades of things,
Yeah,
yeah.
they sort.
But, so, yeah, and the other is some education around if what you're bringing is just, junk, trash, then just put it directly in the trash.
If it doesn't work, don't
Understand.
expect somebody else is gonna fix it. Either find a different place to get rid of it, or throw it in the appropriate recycle bin. The swap
Yeah.
shed has become a little bit of a feel-good, I can get rid of this stuff and just
And think
walk
it's
away,
gonna
and I'm
go-
just going to assume that
I
somebody
haven't
else
gotten
is
anything
doing
good out
it.
of there in months.
And,
I have.
I think
Actually, I got a
it's
great
just,
carpet and
I
a
think
couple of
I think it
TV trays.
encourages people to throw things away, rather than find a different use of it. And I think that's one of the things we wanna try
Right,
Yeah.
to change.
right,
I get it.
Because it's really costing a lot, and it's not just costing a lot, but it means our trash weight is much higher, and that's, you know, I think one of the reasons why our trash rate is so high, because we take anything. I think
Yeah.
the next step
Da-
is to start charging
Yeah, down
for
the
the big
road,
items.
we're looking at,
Okay, so I think we do need more staff. I think we should have a staff in the, I regularly go into the swap shed.
Oh, I go
And
every
the other
time.
day, I found it was a paper bag, and it turned out it was all brand-new frames, picture frames of various sizes and shapes and, you know. They still had their tags on them, the price tags on them. But the way it was presented in the bag, and they were like all wrapped up in, you know, if I hadn't been curious and had started to unwrap that, and I ended up taking the whole load home, but, but
See?
it would have been, but.
it
but
could
it would
have
been-
just ended up
it
going
would've-
in the
could've been
trash.
Trash.
If it,
So
yeah.
if we had staff to say, oh, you know, what is it? And because people also aren't careful about where they put them on the
Right,
things.
right.
Help the people to bring the stuff in and present it nicely and/or say, you know, I really think this isn't the place for this, take it across and throw this out. I mean,
Yeah,
or maybe we
that's-
could have volunteers, I don't know. But
That's another person, right?
Well, it is, but I also think we should be raising our fees in order to cover that, because everything's.
Right, so what we were trying to
costing.
figure out was,
But-
what's something short-term that we could do to have an immediate impact?
Yeah,
While we then continue to do more research into what makes sense for charging for the bigger items, how might we do that, what does it take to get a credit card processing thing there, what type of, how Gary might handle that from, a flow perspective. But that's something that was
It's a
further down the
bigger- yeah,
road,
right.
because, we just feel like there's a problem that we need to start trying things to fix it out. What we try doesn't necessarily mean that this is it forever, right?
No.
But just trying different things another thing was just a lot better signage.
Right.
And, add to the signage so people know where to throw things away. I think some of the times they're just throwing it next to the swap shed because they know it's junk, but they don't know which bin it goes into.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially metal.
Right,
Yeah.
and so
Yes.
and Gary doesn't want people throwing things directly in the metal bin, but it sure would be nice if they put it right next to the metal bin to
Exactly.
cut down on staff time and throwing it actually into the metal
I
bin.
didn't even know we had a metal bin.
There is a
Yes.
metal
Or where
bin,
it-
there's
where
an
it was
electronic,
located.
there's an
Yeah.
electronic recycling bin.
Really?
Oh, I didn't know about that one.
Yeah, see,
And
then,
there's
so,
a tire
And,
bin,
Yeah,
but
the
the
tire
thing
bin.
is, he doesn't want people throwing things directly into it.
because
But
he
I think
doesn't,
that's fine, but at
But
least
what
let me know
happens
where
is
to
that
put it
the
then.
well,
things-
it's all gonna go to the left of the shed, but we need a better sign.
Or it could go like right next to the bin, but
Right.
at least it's getting people thinking about, okay, is this junk?
Yeah.
Right.
Or,
I understand.
because
Well-
right now, broken things go in the swap shed. Broken things should not go in the swap
Right.
shed.
Well, that's one thing. I think certainly signs say, if it don't work and if it's broken, don't put it in here. I think the idea of letting people resell it, that's fine too. There's also some people I know that collect things to send overseas
Yep,
for charities.
And all that should, I think,
We
my
should
opinion,
encourage
all
that.
that should be
Yeah.
encouraged.
That should be encouraged. I think it should
The
be
idea is to get
encouraged.
it out of the solid waste stream.
It is,
Exactly.
exactly. We don't,
Well,
you know.
Mary Zoll came to us with a proposal to take stuff out
Yeah.
and sell
Yes,
it,
she
right?
did,
And
and
I think all
we-
she wanted was a letter of approval.
And
But
we
did that-
never
didn't that
We never
acted.
did that, no.
We never acted on that,
Oh, we
so
didn't.
why don't
okay.
Do you wanna
Yeah,
do
I
that
mean-
tonight?
Yeah,
Could you give her a letter of approval?
I could, yeah.
Alright.
Yeah.
Like, contact her, see if she's still.
If she's
looking
still
for
interested,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
thank you.
Why not, yeah.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
And I think it's also just letting people know, if you throw something out and it's late in the day, there's a really good chance it's just gonna get thrown away. So
So please.
try to, those things that you think have value, bring them as early in the day as you possibly can, because,
Yeah, give
They're
people
gone.
a chance to take
Okay,
them.
but there again is an opportunity for volunteers like Mary, who could maybe get organized to, if it's late in the day and you haven't, and it's too good to throw out, call this volunteer, they'll pick it up for you and take it.
I think that's
mean-
asking a lot of Gary to
No, I
manage
didn't say,
that.
no, not
Mary.
Mary, I said Mary.
Mary Zoll.
I know you said that, but who's
Oh.
gonna do the calling,
Right.
right?
The- Well,
Well,
I'm
it could
just
just be
saying,
an assumed thing. You show up on Wednesday and Friday.
Yeah,
and-
you know, another option would be to, open up, I wonder if it'd make any difference to open up an hour earlier on a weekday. Instead of, well, I guess it doesn't.
It's
9
10 to
a.m.
5.
doesn't help anyway.
10 to,
Yeah.
10 to.
If you're a commuter, you're going in at 6.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
once, and once the day starts, it's too late. Yeah, I think what you're getting at is open it up earlier so they can get going. But by then, you're still kind of stuck with the stuff all day, because by the time the day starts, they're not gonna be able to sort through it. And
The only other thing too, though, is, you know, Gary's guys throw it out, right? Can they be the ones to make the judgment call, hey, this actually looks decent?
They will
they?
recycle things, and sometimes.
They do
They
sort
take
What he
through.
said was, if there's
Sell them
a piece of
sometimes.
furniture that comes in the end, towards the end of the day, and they say, this is nice, they'll move it into the
They
swap
will
shed.
leave it, okay, yeah, no,
Yeah.
I mean, I
But they
kinda
just
assumed
can't
they
do
did
it for
that.
everything, because they'd just be.
Oh, yeah,
tripping
no,
over it.
right,
And
but
you know,
like
and
if
all
the-
They
that
do use
kind
some
of
judgment.
Little
Yeah, okay, they
loose
do.
stuff
Oh,
that's
yeah,
on
no,
the
the knick-knacky
shelves,
crap,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
and there may
Yeah.
be
Saucer.
something of
Yeah.
value in there, like picture
Yeah.
frames, but they're not gonna go through
No, no,
every
no,
little
no, that,
thing.
no, you can't.
But they do
Even
put
when I
glass
think
in
it's
glass, they do put cans in cans.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's quite a few.
And
I
it's,
mean,
that
was
takes
the
a
other
lot of
thing
their
I got
time.
where
So
I
what
got-
was the amount of hours? It was,
Somebody must have
he
closed up
said he
their
thought it
bar.
was at
I
least
got
2 hours
glass
for 2 guys.
yeah, so
The
it's
following, so it's 4
four,
hours.
it's 4 staff hours,
following
times a
each-
week.
Yeah,
And
so
I'm not-
it's
I'm not
16
proud.
or
I
12
mean,
staff hours.
yeah, so it's not
a week.
insignificant. Yeah.
Oh, well, I was gonna say, okay, but so what if you have one person staff it the next day, you know, for 6 hours, right?
To let people come in
To
and
let people
look.
come and take it, right? But the thing is, then ultimately,
But,
you
but that's
still.
only, but it's 6 for the whole week. It's not 6.
And you're not gonna
Oh,
make,
oh,
you
oh,
don't make
it's
2
not
trips
2.
to the dump.
Right,
You take your trash and you take your stuff for the swap shed at the same time, and then you go into the swap shed, see if there's anything.
look around, if
Yeah.
you're, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's what
And
everybody
you,
does.
and you try not to take home more than you brought.
Right.
Oh, I don't do that. I don't try.
Oh, I see you don't try. I have taken home so much, that's what makes me promise.
So,
not to bring home more than I
the,
take.
the input I'm taking away from this is we should, go ahead, but we should see if there's some creative ways to have more of what seems to have some value in the swap shed be, taken, or, you know, by, say, if Mary Zoll wants to get involved, or if there are some other ideas about that. I think in the short run, I think we don't wanna mess around with changing staffing and responsibilities until we
It's not
have,
our job.
because if we're gonna go toward you pay for tires, you wanna drop off, the things that cost us money, so, you know, we, the town, we have to pay per tire, we have to pay per TV, we have to pay by the pound on, I guess, the electronics. So those things that cost us, I think, down the road, what we're thinking is, right, you either raise the fee or you have a, you know, you get charged an amount when you wanna drop off one of those things.
So I've got a really crazy idea.
Okay, I
Shocking.
like, I always say talk is cheap.
Yeah.
What if we had a different permit that would allow people from out of town to come in the last 2 hours a day? They cannot drop off, but they can pull out. They can take things out of the swap shed.
Why not?
They have to have a permit.
I like the idea, but I mean, they have a hard time monitoring the stickers now, you know?
I
Yeah.
don't know, they do a pretty, I have to say, I was talking to a couple of different people, including some people that, you know, ride at our house that don't live in town. And she just told me yesterday, she said, yeah, I tried to go over there in my truck and drop stuff off. I was hoping maybe I could just slip in there, and nope, somebody came right over to me and said,
Yeah, it depends on the time of day, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
I've been in there certain times and there's nobody.
yeah.
So, but,
Yeah.
so the drawback would be somebody is coming
What-
and they
yeah,
don't have
they're
a
trying to
permit,
drop some-
but they're still trying to
They-
take
and
out of
they-
the swap?
And they drop. You know,
Dropping
the thing is they drop, right? I mean, especially this time of year when it's dark. You know, I mean, I don't care who takes the stuff.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I mean, I would
I was
rather
trying to
have
think
it
of a
all
way that it
gone.
could be taken, so it could be, you know, it could be, maybe that's something we consider when and if we do start charging for things to be dropped there.
Mm.
Because people aren't gonna come to drop there to be charged, right?
Right.
Gary was telling the funny story about somebody came up and complained that somebody was there in a car that had New Jersey license plates, and he said, That's a long way to come to drop off your garbage.
All righty.
And there was Arlo Guthrie, yes. And that was at Thanksgiving, too. Sorry.
That's okay. But we can generally say that the Board of Selectmen is very supportive.
But not so much about the hours. We have to figure out something else other than the hours.
Certainly supportive of finding
A way to
creative
reduce.
solution to the
Yeah.
problem that they have.
Why, how many, do you guys have open meetings? Do you guys have public meetings? Have you guys ever said, hey, public, come and talk about this?
Yeah, I think that'd be
Because
a
I bet
great
you there are a
idea.
bajillion people in town who have ideas. It's amazing how many people love that swap shed.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
yes.
it's
yeah.
crazy, right?
Yes, and that's why I'm thinking, there might be people that are invested enough that they might decide to coordinate and, you know,
You ready for that,
organize
Tim?
to.
An open town, what did we call it?
A trash party.
Yeah, there you go. No, just to come and talk about the,
Well,
I honestly think the volunteer idea might work, because there are some people who actually get ticked that other people are there, like hunkered down on a Saturday, they
picking
just.
the stuff before
Right.
they have a crack at it.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
hey, that's me,
Right, so,
you know,
so
it's
what
like.
you're doing with these volunteers is you're saying, hey, look, you kind of have free run for a little while, free reign for a little bit.
But how do you manage I totally get that, but how do you manage the volunteers? Are we setting up a
Yes.
committee?
They manage themselves, that's the
Are
thing.
we setting up a committee and saying,
No.
you own the volunteers, or?
Well, it could be the recycling. I mean, you will literally have so many volunteers that you can probably.
But you just need, but
I
you just
honestly
need some
think you can
structure
honestly.
to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So you have maybe the recycling committee or Gary
Sign
or
up.
somebody, but I think the recycling committee would be the best. Yeah, I honestly think you would get enough volunteers for the first 3 or 4 months in like the first shot, boom, because that's how dedicated some people are to that thing.
Yes,
It's crazy.
I
It's
agree.
like a cult
Well,
following.
and it's also a social area.
Yeah.
So people come
Yeah.
and they meet their neighbors and
Yeah,
they
yeah.
start
Um,
chit-chatting.
chit-chatting, and
Buy
so
cookies.
that's why I think volunteers, maybe not Tuesdays and Thursdays, but certainly on Saturdays.
Oh, certainly
You
Saturday.
could have a volunteer force, I think that we could rely on to help manage what gets in there, who, as I said, they look at it and say, can I help you unwrap this and present it nicely so it'll get taken, no, take that back, get rid of that, I think that could work.
Yeah, or you let them drop that. I wouldn't necessarily say, no, that stuff is junk,
I
throw
know,
it out.
that's
Well,
a
okay,
I'd
you
let
let
it
it
drop it
and then you
and
take,
then launch
the
it. Yeah,
volunteer
yeah,
takes the
exactly,
thing and
exactly.
goes, but,
Yeah. Yeah.
fine, but however it works, I think it could work. It would be helpful.
Well, Tim, Nathan,
Well, maybe a
Guess the
public
working
input
group
session
has to-
would be pretty useful.
Yeah, no, and I do think a public input session where because it's amazing the
Yeah.
ideas people come up with,
And I also think if you do things from the ground up,
Yeah.
rather than from the
Yeah.
top down,
Yeah.
you will get more buy-in.
Yeah.
And people will be more cooperative.
Yeah.
And then they have some skin in the game as well, and they're more interested and invested in making sure that that works.
And they also become an information source. They go back and
Yes.
talk to their neighbors
Right.
and people who
Yes.
didn't come
the
to the
other people
hearing.
that care about the swap shop, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what we could do is just put a letter in the mosquito, the next mosquito, and say, hey, we're discussing this, and, who wants to
Yeah.
come share ideas about how to handle the swap shed.
You could even, at that point, in that letter, say, here's the problem.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And
We
we're
talked
looking
about
for
that.
creative solutions, and we know everybody loves the swap shed, please come to the meeting.
Yeah,
Or send us an email.
yeah,
So, because, people aren't able always, but
right.
give them a link,
Right, a way to,
Yeah.
respond.
a way to respond.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, and we had talked about doing public information sessions before implementing anything.
Yeah.
But I think if we're
But-
pulling everybody and we're doing this, I think we have to kind of go for everything. I'm not sure that we really stage it in and say, well, let's just do something to reduce it for now while we're working on these other things. I think, we need to get the public input and then develop a plan based upon that.
Well, I think the fee thing, for the large bulky items, I think, yeah, I'm fully supportive of that, but I think that's something that, I don't know if we really need to ask permission for that, you know? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, because it's basically, if you,
Well, I
if
don't
you
think we
have an
have to
open
ask for
session.
permission for anything about that, but I think that we would definitely want to have some public input about it, right?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yes.
Why? Everybody else charges, why?
For the same
Okay,
reasons
then you
Kate was.
present it.
No, I honestly think, you know, I mean, if you're dropping something off that's bulky, right? Our dumping fees are already incredibly low, right? People don't want pay-as-you-throw. So make people pay for the bulky items. You know, I mean, you gotta
It
think
just
about
seems
things
odd
like.
that we would have a public information session to see about how people feel about, you know, the swap shed, but not have a public information session about the fact that your TV is gonna cost $25, your propane tank's gonna cost $10. I mean,
Well,
why
so,
would
but
you
there's
have it for
also-
one but not the other?
Because the swap shed right now is,
We're talking about stuff that's going into the swap shed.
yeah, I understand that. Well, so, but now it's gonna be one of those things where you can dump that stuff. But, you know, if we're not gonna implement the fees right now, I mean, I'm all for implementing those fees right now. I mean, I think we should be charging for TVs and microwaves and, I mean, especially stuff where like you buy a new washing machine, they will take it away for free. You know, and now it's basically, it goes there, and, I mean, at one point in time, I think it used to actually have some value, but now it's,
It's a
between the
break-even
labor. and-
for 'em now.
Right, so it's really a waste, right? A break even is really a waste. Because you're occupying somebody's time where they could be doing something else. And, you know, so, yeah, maybe then, but I think, at least this is my opinion, you know, is the direction of the board should be, look at, if we wanna try to get this thing so we're not doing pay-as-you-throw, you know, then we have to charge for mattresses, we have to charge for TVs, you know, working or not, if your TV works, sorry, you're still gonna pay $10 to dump it.
I
you know?
totally agree with you. I totally think that we
So-
should start doing the charging.
Yeah, so, but then, you know, I don't know, do we necessarily
so-
need to have?
Well, yeah, I
Or
think
you
it's
just add that
always
in,
good to run, you know, to get feedback. And at least the people have a chance to say their piece. If they don't like the idea, they can say they don't like it, but, you know, it's ultimately up to us to decide. And we're gonna take the heat no matter what.
I
So-
would say that mini discussions, mini discussions, MINI discussions, are better than one global discussion
Yeah.
about all your fees and stuff. So I think it would be perfectly okay to just have your little discussion about the swap shed.
Yeah.
See how that goes,
Yeah.
and what's sort of, you know, reaction. And then the next one, you know, the next thing that we're thinking about is, you know, fees. And you do one just on fees. I would not do it on the global thing, because then it's too far-ranging
Yeah,
and
too
too
many,
much.
I think it's, I
And
agree, I
you-
think it's.
I think your information will be diluted, and you'll get off track.
Right,
I would do it on piece by piece.
yeah.
I'm not sure I would. I just
Well,
I think it's just better just to, you know, you're asking for people to participate. It's using our time, it's using Gary's time, you know, volunteer time
Understand.
is precious. Getting people engaged is hard. And I think getting them engaged in smaller topics is gonna be harder than just saying, come and talk to us about the transfer station. You know, we're thinking about, you know, what's on the table is pay as you throw, you know, charging for things in the swap shed, how we get, you know, how we reduce what's in the swap shed, and just get it done.
Yeah, as soon as you say pay as you throw, though, that's gonna be your entire
Yeah,
2-hour
see,
chunk of
Well,
time.
why
But that's
may
what
I
we're
make
trying
a-
to avoid.
Yeah, can I make a
Right? Yeah.
suggestion, though?
Yes.
Well, I don't agree, actually, that we're trying to avoid pay-as-you-throw, because I actually think.
It's the one system that seems to work.
It's the
Yeah,
only
well,
system
the-
that's been shown
So
to
we
work.
may, exactly.
But the systematic thing is to not jump right to it, right?
Yeah,
That's why
yes,
we're doing the
which is
systematic.
Which is
what we
why I
had
think
said.
you start with the
So-
swap shed, which everybody's interested in, and then once they're invested in that, then you move to then you can move to all the other topics all at once if you want, but I think you need to get those people interested in what they're, you know, really interested in
Yeah.
first.
Well, if you, the
Anyway.
rest of you are comfortable with this, Nathan and I
Yeah,
and
you guys have
and
got to
Tim
deal
and
with it.
Lana and Gary will hash this out and figure out how we're
Okay.
gonna get input.
Yeah,
Um,
we're not gonna micromanage it.
And just know that we're, once we get
Until
to
we do.
actually.
You just did.
So, you're not gonna micromanage anymore. But, okay, great. Thank you for your input, everybody. And just to know that
Thank you for
also
all
the
work
rough,
you guys have been doing.
the rough estimate on what it'll cost us to do some new signs is about $1,000.
Yeah, I think it's
So,
money well spent.
I think we should, can
we
we
don't
just
know
have
the
approval,
exact-
just go ahead with those when we want to?
Or-
New signage?
Yeah, yeah.
We need signs there desperately.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and you know, what
Yeah.
would be useful is, I think we've seen it at some point, but I don't know if there's a new version of where
The map.
each can is, yeah, what
Yes.
the actual.
We
Yeah,
wanna put
we're
up
talking
maps.
about getting a
Yep.
new one.
Yeah, but there's,
Done.
but there's a website that's got,
Yeah.
you know, and it's not on the Carlisle, it might be now, but.
It's on
years
the
ago it
Acton
was-
website?
No, but it's like Carlisle Recycles or something.
Yeah, right.
Carlisle Communities.
Yeah, and that's out of date anyway.
Yeah,
So,
right, so it'd be nice to
Yeah,
have
did I
an,
That's
put
what
that on
happens when
here?
there are other
Yeah.
websites and not part of ours.
yeah, exactly, but it'd be
Yeah.
nice to have just an up-to-date one
Yep.
on the
Yep.
website, right?
And I
Yep.
think we did plan on trying to put an overview of everything in the Mosquito as an article.
Yeah.
We're not ready for that yet.
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, good. We'll keep you posted.
We also thought, so many people are gone right now, it's not the time to make,
Yeah.
it's the holiday season, too many people are gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're gonna recycle like crazy in
And
2
plus,
weeks.
after,
In a month.
after Thanksgiving,
Better
I mean,
get it.
after Christmas,
Christmas,
right? So
compost bin.
all those
when it's
recycled
best.
gifts are the
Yeah.
things you don't want. Yeah, okay, great,
Just out of curiosity, how's the composting going?
Going
great.
quite well.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
because
They're
they're,
up, they're up
Like
to, they're up to
numbers?
5 bins now.
Wow.
I
And
did
that's, yeah.
find one though, because I do use it.
Yeah.
And I opened one up and it's like, it was full of shredded paper. It was like, you know. So I closed it back up and I went and talked to the guy. I said, do you have any liner? I said, I was willing to line it myself. I said, I'll take this out.
Oh, because there wasn't an empty bin?
There were empty bins, but somebody had put shredded paper in one of them, which is verboten. They don't want shredded paper in there. It's one of the do not put in there. And so it was clean, so, you know, what I
Got
said
it.
was,
You could throw it into the mixed
Yeah.
paper.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
exactly, but anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah, and the only, I mean, it is compostable, they just don't want it in there because it takes up space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
yeah,
same with
that's
the.
what I was gonna say. I thought it's compostable, so it's.
It is, but for some reason it's on, no, I don't think they want I think Black Earth does not want shredded paper, because they don't know what kind of ink's on it.
Yeah, it's probably the ink, right?
Oh.
Yeah,
Plus, it
Okay.
takes up so much space so quickly.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
the pizza boxes.
yeah.
But anyway, generally, what Gary and Lana were saying, and you know, Gary's more, yeah, it's working.
Yeah.
And Lana's more, yeah, it's great, but it's, and they're moving the whole setup underneath the shed next to the oil container for the
Uh-huh.
winter.
Oh, that's
So,
good.
right,
Yep.
you're not gonna have to plow around it or, you know, plow, or,
Yeah,
so anyway, and there'll be a better sign for that too in the process of making these new signs, so.
Excuse me. Good.
okay,
Yeah.
good.
Well, that elicited a lot of excited
It sure did.
conversation. See, just like it's gonna when
Teach us
we
to-
open it up.
And this is only 5 people.
I know.
And we know what's going on.
It'll teach us to come back to this board again.
We do, we are in the know.
Yes.
We won't ask them,
See if
we'll
that
just
shows
do
up in
it.
the mosquito. What's going on?
The atomic warrant articles, ATM. What is the April town meeting? Is that-
Annual.
Annual town meeting.
April town meeting.
Well, you know, hey, discussion it says, all right. So there's a list of,
Right.
Tim, take it away, Tim.
Well, you recall, you gave folks a deadline of November 15th
Yeah, boy,
for
they've been scrambling.
any potential articles they were thinking of for the next annual town meeting. So I did put together a list, and I started off with the 18 articles that we know will reoccur on this warrant, because they do every year. So our numbers 19 through 34 are what we received. And a number of them are potential bylaw changes that this board had talked about, and I tried to capture all of those. The planning board has some proposed zoning amendments, but then you'll see some of the other ones. We have a placeholder for the Complete Streets project, because we won't know until to go out to bid, whether we've got enough resource for that.
What do we think roughly that's gonna be as a number?
Well, the engineers know that the grant is 250,000, and they think it's gonna be tight, which tells me they think it might be
Yeah.
slightly higher than that.
1,000.
Yeah.
When would we know how much that is?
January-ish? Well, when are the bids going out?
Well, probably January, February timeframe, so we'd know well in advance of town meeting if
Yeah.
if there were a deficit. Additionally, I understand there's gonna be another round of supplemental Chapter 90 funding coming from the state as a result of last budget year. You remember a year ago, we got an extra $50,000 that we ended up putting toward the design of the project. And they have even more Chapter 90, surplus Chapter 90 that they intend to distribute from fiscal 19, so we
good.
probably can count on that amount or.
Yeah, and
Or-
Not to be a pain, but I just want to point out that the very first warrant article on here violates what we said, which is it has to have an estimate of the cost early so that we know
well-
what we're talking about.
And we did ask that, and you'll know that very few people provided an estimate. There are a few with estimates, but we didn't get that from a number of folks,
So
and we
what do
don't really
so what
have
do we-
anything for
So
that.
what do we do, right? I mean, what do we do, or are we just gonna accept
Well,
that this is?
it's up to $250,000. That's what the grant is.
No, so we got the grant, right? So
have the
it's,
grant.
so,
This would
if
be
they-
if we
it
need
costs
more.
yeah,
than
if it
that.
costs a little more, right? And we've got 50,000 from town meeting last year, right? Some of that went towards the Stamsky piece,
The design.
right?
And we think we're probably gonna see another 50 or 60,000
Yeah,
in addition this year.
right,
So
right.
if the bids came back at 300,000, there's probably a way we could
Right.
find that much.
So
Yeah,
it might be
exactly.
zero, but
400,000 or more, then we've gotta
Yeah, then.
talk
then-
about something different.
Right, and then we gotta decide, is it really even worth it, right? Or, so the way we've got it bid now is there's gonna be a piece that's parsed out, the East Street piece, right? You know, if it ends up being that it's crazy money, then we parse it out even more, you know what I mean? You know, we really, Complete Streets, you know, the state gives you the money based on what they truly feel that the cost is gonna be. You know, and the engineers, they weren't like, oh, Jesus, no, it's not enough, but they were like, it may be tight. You know, we got rid of a lot of the cobbles and all of that stuff. We're gonna try to recycle some of the granite curbing, you know, so there are ways to save money, and we're gonna do that. And then also to, you know, the paving, that's all the Chapter 90 stuff, so, you know, maybe we can do some extra with that. You know, it's not gonna be.
For me, it's not so much about this project. I totally
No, it's the
support-
process.
I totally
Yeah, I know you're a
support the
process
project.
guy. Yeah.
It's, what we're saying is maybe in February, we'll know, January or February, we'll know.
That's still
Well,
pretty early.
Well, but what
But it's
we had
not
said
what we-
was we wanted to know November
But
15th.
that's unrealistic.
That's unrealistic. No, what we said.
So did we feel that when we set it, or are we resetting it so that people who didn't get the number or something to us have another crack at it?
No, well, I think what we said is there are always gonna be those last minute things, right? Those things that we just don't know, and they pop up, and I think Complete Streets is one of those. You know, we're trying to make it so we won't
So
need
what
it.
about the dog fence?
Well, that's a RecCom thing, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Let me, I just want
Yeah.
to clarify one thing. That's not how I had understood it. It was more like, at least we know that we should be looking for Complete Streets things, and
Yeah.
Complete Streets is on the qui-vive, and they know that they need to get this to us as, soon as possible. We didn't want to get to March, and then somebody come to us and say,
Oh, yeah, we
oh,
need a.
oh, yeah, we forgot to,
Well, the
can we
problem
have
last
this?
year was that there were warrant articles that we knew. There were warrant articles we didn't know.
That's
But there were
right.
also warrant articles that we knew that we did not get the cost in until after we had already gone through the whole budget process. And I think that's the particular process we were trying to fix, because FinCom was having a problem, we were having a problem, we're trying to figure out where we were going to be. And there are these warrant articles where it's, well, it's coming, well, it's coming, well, it's coming. I worry a little bit that we've said, and so people have not done a warrant article because they didn't have the money, but we're saying something like the dog, the dog park, it's okay they don't have it. That could be that it's okay because it's unrealistic, as Alan was saying, but does that mean we say, if you were thinking about something, you now have until December 31st. Or, you know, it's like,
Yeah, well.
Right.
like,
why
okay,
were
yeah,
some
but how
people
much-
not able to do it,
Yes.
yet we're
Right,
giving
but-
other people the opportunity to
Right.
kind of break the
Right.
rules, you know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah,
No,
I know.
I agree with that, but I think certain things like, you know, the fence for a dog park, right?
It's a small,
That's not a
gonna be
critical
small.
item, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, complete streets, it's either, you know, we do it or we give the funds back. And it may be that if it's 500, we give the funds back, you know, we just say this doesn't make economic sense, right? But, you know, I think that's got to factor in as well, right? If, you know, if you come in with a, you know, well, it
Or
happened last
maybe
year.
we say, okay, this can be here, but, you know, we give it an absolute limit on what it could be.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
but I mean, like, so last
So
year.
that we understand the
yeah,
impact on the budget.
okay.
Yeah, I'm just trying to
Right.
make sure
Right.
that we're not wondering where we're gonna be in our budget
Yeah, no,
until
you
late in
can't.
the process.
Right,
it's
right.
also partly, you know, it doesn't take that much work to find out, you know, get 3 bids for a fence for the, you know, thing, and it's probably not a big amount. But something like the Complete Streets or the police station or something like that, you would have to be planning 3 years in advance in order to have the information ready for now.
Yep.
And then it would be already out of date and it's gonna be, you know,
The money won't-
it's really hard to hit these,
Yeah, some of them are,
some of these
Yeah,
are really
yeah.
hard to hit the target.
yeah.
With all the effort that goes into them.
Yeah, yeah, and some things too, I mean, like last year, you know, when we had the original, they weren't complete streets, what were they? Traffic safety advisory, you know, the other,
Yeah.
and they came and they said $350,000, we laughed them out the door. You know, I mean, it's just, it was what it was, right?
And we could do that, we could put maxima on
Yeah.
these, and, you know, if it, you know,
Yeah.
if Complete Streets comes in, you know, we say, well, maybe we'll, you know, for our own purposes, put a $50,000 maximum on that. If they come in at $100,000, we say no.
Yeah,
Okay, is that,
But I don't want them to
So-
say, okay, then it's 50, and
well, and
Yeah.
I also wanna know, is that the 50 over and above the whatever extra chapter 90 we get, or only, you know?
right, well, that,
Because
you
that
know,
chapter 90 could be used
it's
somewhere
only
else
what we're
too.
going to town meeting for.
right.
Okay.
Right, yeah, and part of it too is, you know, like with the whole, we need $350,000 to do this, you know, because that was just pathways or something, wasn't it? You know, we said no. You know, it forced us to, you know, we looked at a different option. You know, we got the grant funding and now we're getting some money to do it, right?
Right.
You know, sometimes throwing a warrant article in last minute is an easy thing to do, you know, so we want to make sure that people have actually done their homework, you know, and I think the thing with RecCom is they're putting it in here, they're gonna see if CPA funds can be used, which I don't know if they can or not. I haven't looked into that, but I think there's also, I think Drew and Mark were saying that there's state funding, and there's funding elsewhere, and I think that's another avenue that they're definitely going to explore, so they don't really know what, you know, what that would be.
But if they don't put it in, even if that exploration turns up nothing, then they're
Right.
stuck in there
Right.
for another year.
Right.
So these are.
But they should be able to give an estimate.
Yeah,
of the
it
amount.
would have been nice if they had given us a
Yeah,
kind
like
of
a
a
not to
ballpark.
exceed or something.
You know, say 20,000, 6,000,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you go to, I mean, there are fence companies all
Yeah.
over the place.
I
will
mean,
tell
I
you what it
assume we're
costs.
talking black chain link.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be terribly
I- I-
expensive.
I guess it would just, you know, like, if they were to come and give us a number of 30 grand, right? And if Complete Streets was to come and give us a number of 50 grand,
Yeah.
and we put these numbers together, the earlier we can tell them no.
Right.
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 The better they can go, and they can push harder to get numbers. We don't have the numbers to tell them whether or not it's a yes or a no, or how hard they should be pushing. Right now, it's just kind of a, well, we want to put it in there. We don't know how much it's going to cost, which almost just kind of means we're going to kind of do something else, but we're going to come to you because we want the town to vote on it. And that's not the way it should work, right? I mean, I
Right.
think we should be,
Niche has estimators.
Well, we decide whether we put it on the. on the
exactly.
thing.
Yeah,
Right.
they could always do their
Yeah.
own, but
Yeah,
Yeah, and part of
it's
it
just
too.
hard for us to give the general sense as to
Right.
what
no.
we want to do.
Yeah, no, and like Tim just pointed out, so, you know, for Complete Streets, for example, they're putting together the bid documents now. You know, once that's
Yeah.
all laid out, you know, because it'll be a heck of a lot more specific, they probably have people on staff that can give us a much better idea.
Yeah.
You know, we're not at that point, where we
Well,
weren't at that point.
And in fact, they probably already know that, because they've already told you that the East Street thing may be outside the budget. So So obviously they have a figure in mind that they're working with now.
Yeah, so that's the thing, the East Street thing wasn't paid for by Complete Streets, right? So the idea is that we'll throw it in there and see how much extra it is. You know, because, just because they didn't fund it doesn't mean that we shouldn't at least look at it. It was part of it. They, you know, I think part of it was that, you know, we don't have, there were a few reasons, I think. You know, one was, excuse me, this is our first grant. You know, they're not gonna give us the full amount. We don't have bike lanes, you know, we don't have a lot of the things that are truly complete streets, so they're not gonna fund us completely. But that's why they pulled that East, one of the reasons that they pulled that East Street part out, I think, was to reduce the amount. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't necessarily look at it, but if it doesn't get funded, it doesn't get funded, and, you know, we go with the original plan, you know, and just pave it.
Can't they tell you,
There's no
like,
cost.
what we think? it
Yeah,
might
yeah,
cost
yeah,
us?
so that's, once they spec it out, they can say.
I mean, do they have to totally spec it out, or can they tell us about what it would be for now, so that as we're looking at this, we know how big that bread box is? I don't know, is it $20,000, or is it $200,000?
No, but once they actually put the bid documents together, they'll know it's, you know, 32,000 square feet of asphalt, and, you know what I mean? So, and then
They
they
can
just
estimate.
stick a
We're not
number
gonna
to
know
it.
until February.
No, this is the engineering firm, when they put the bid documents together, they'll know, you know, it's
Right, before you-
550 feet of curbing, it's, you know, I don't know, 200
When will
square
they
feet
know
of,
that?
they're putting the bid together, documents together now.
Probably end of December, early January, before we
Oh,
put the bid package
yeah,
together.
will they have, I thought they were putting them together now, though.
I could tell them
I
that.
think they,
Yeah.
I think we'll have an estimate before, we were talking about February for the
yeah,
actual
oh, we'll
bids.
definitely have it, yeah, before that,
February
yeah.
for the actual bids.
Yeah,
Yeah,
'cause that
yeah,
could be
December or
higher.
January, I mean, we should have a
Yeah.
pretty good number.
Well, can
January's
you
pretty
push
late.
them, can you push them to give us a rough number now, or?
I'm
in
sure we
de-
Yeah,
could.
yeah, I mean, we could
in
ask, yeah,
December or
yeah.
something?
yeah.
Since that's probably gonna be one of the bigger ones.
Yeah.
Although I don't see, oh, there's a municipal facilities, 13.
If it's $100,000, I think that's just a whole lot harder for us to accept than if
No, I
it's
agree.
$50,000, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I agree.
And
Yep.
maybe it's not worth doing that work, because we don't support it.
Right. No, and that's just it. If, you know, so for example, that extra piece, right? You know, like I said, we could parse out other things. There's not a heck of a lot you can parse out, but then really that's what you do. You parse that out, and if the town votes for it, we do it. If the town doesn't, we don't. You know, but,
But you're skipping a step.
no.
There's
you're-
whether or not we even present it to the town.
Right, well, that's just it, but, you know, if, yeah, and the thing is, you can always go back and do it after, you know, because we had talked about doing it in another phase, you know, so, I mean, there are different ways to do it, it's just, it made sense to try to do it now, because Gary's paving that part, right, so that was really the main, because otherwise, there's really no cost.
I totally get it. It's
No, I
just-
know, yeah,
It's just, we don't know how much it is.
right, no, I agree.
All right, so you got that one, and then the Energy Task Force revolving fund, or continuing appropriation.
Okay, so
for
there was a discussion about that at our financial planning meeting this morning about revolving funds in general, and I don't know whether that really affects this one or not, but, and the treasurer was saying that we have a whole bunch of little ditty revolving funds, and rather than having all these little revolving funds which take a lot of work to administer, all of this could be going through our general ledger and could be tracked and administered through that, which would be less, well, as it turns out, it's less work for the treasurer and more work for the accountant, but still less work in general.
And it's allowed to be held over year over year and tracked year over year.
You know,
I
that's
think
not.
that's what
that's
she
the
was,
problem.
That's
she
what
was
I had
saying.
understood,
Yeah,
We'd wanna
yes,
look at that.
yeah.
But it doesn't,
So-
but it doesn't solve the problem whether you put, if you put a
Still gotta-
accounting line in that general fund
Still need a
for
source
this
funds.
CETF, we still gotta do that.
Yeah, but that doesn't have to be done through town warrant,
Through
town
warrant?
meeting,
Okay.
meeting,
Oh, if it's not a revolving fund.
right.
I don't know how you do it if it's just going into the fund and have it carry over from year to year.
So
That would kind of mean that they would have to spend the savings in that year.
Well, there'd have to be income,
Yes,
and there isn't any for that by and large.
well, there will be the solar panels, right?
I don't think
And
that goes into
charging.
this, though.
That's what I was proposing. That is what I proposed.
Yeah.
Okay, well, anyway,
So what I
that
can
did
tell
come
you,
up,
what
and I
what I
just
can tell you
wanted
that we're meeting next Thursday night about it, just Jonathan
Jonathan,
and I.
Cook.
I don't know if it's Jonathan or John. It's
Oh,
Jonathan,
it's
right?
John or
Jonathan.
Jonathan, yeah.
Okay.
I think Jon,
Yeah,
however.
he and I are gonna chat, the last Board of Selectmen meeting, we said we were gonna, he and I were gonna get together to kind of flush out the numbers and what made sense, and so
Okay.
we're gonna meet next Thursday night.
All right.
Okay,
And we can talk to, finance about it.
so where are we on these?
21, possible
21.
bylaw amendments.
Okay, by the personnel bylaw,
What's the LTCRC?
long-term capital
Ah.
requirements committee. We don't know if we will still have one once you guys have finished massaging it. Are you meeting 6:30 on Monday? The long-term caps?
I don't know.
Because I believe you are the one that's.
I
on the
am, I
committee.
haven't,
Okay.
I haven't seen it.
Okay. Are you gonna be able to attend is, I guess, the other question, because now I can.
On the second, I can attend.
And then C is changing the name. Now,
Yeah,
we've got the
I
language
got an
from.
email, yes, it's today. I got an email today.
and it's 6:30 on, 6 or 6:30, I couldn't.
I think it was 6.
Looks like
Six.
actually it may not be able to happen, but I will find out. Not everybody's available.
Because the
Okay,
paid staff would like the earlier start.
yeah, the paid staff
Yeah.
wanted the earlier start, so that's why they were gonna do it at 6. So this, yeah.
C.
What are other towns, what sort of,
They are,
I mean,
did
there
you
were
just get your?
boards of aldermans, and then there's
Yeah,
select
but
boards
those,
and.
if you go to the little manual we all got sent a month ago, with every town listed, in there is a table of what every
Oh, really? I
administrative
missed
board
that.
is there by town, it's they're all, and,
We got something.
and the vast majority of towns, it's either Board of Selectmen or Select Board.
Okay.
Okay, so.
Because if people want to suggest a different name,
Well,
the
I can
bylaw is
go through
very
that list, and as I said, I just went through it today,
yeah.
and I don't recall seeing anything but Board of Selectmen or Select Board.
Well, there is selectors. That's
I didn't-
another
I
one
didn't
that
see
has
that one.
existed,
That would be
yeah.
called a selector.
It sounds like something out of Harry Potter, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah,
right.
Selector.
Yes.
Clockwork Orange or something.
Are you gonna go be Slytherin or Gryffindor or whatever?
No, I was thinking more of those other guys that were suck your soul out of you.
I'll go through that list.
Well,
Okay.
because it sounds like you would like to look at other options.
Well,
Yeah,
you know,
which is
it
fine.
occurred to me that it's still, select still is sort of, it's an antiquated term. And if
Yeah.
we're gonna modernize, maybe we should just, be the executive board or something, and we could all be members of the executive board, or, because that's our function, we're the executive board.
Well, there's
But-
a historical reason for keeping Select.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
There-
We should
there's
just call
fine.
ourselves the Senate.
Oh, no,
King.
yeah, no, that's,
Not these days, yeah.
yeah,
Um,
anyway, so
Okay.
that's just an idea.
I'll
And
go
do you
through-
want to take a look, Alan?
I'll
Yeah,
go
go
through
ahead.
that, because I got that book sitting
And
on my
maybe you
desk.
can shoot us just
Yeah.
an email that
I'll
says,
give you-
here are
I'll-
some of the
I'll give you all
options.
the options that
Yeah.
are listed by town.
All right, and we have the language from town council.
Yeah.
And Jen and I talked briefly, and there don't seem to be any expenses associated, very minor, like the nameplates, but, there's not much.
I'll take
Well,
some.
you already have the
It's more-
fanciest one of all, so.
Yeah.
Right.
And then he just,
What is, in
so,
fact, what are these?
Gonna have to
Board of
change two of the
Select-
plates anyway.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
Barney has a very nice one.
I'll just take some tape,
Yeah.
there you
put on
go.
top of there.
And somebody'd have to go through and change the language, obviously, on all
Yeah,
the
but-
electronic stuff, but it's
Oh.
not a big deal
Yeah, no, it's
in
not a
terms
big
of
deal.
cost,
You can just go through
right? Replace and search and replace.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, did council have any concerns that this would be, I don't want to say contested, because that's not really the right word, but, when contentious, yeah, or contested or contentious, but, because when I was chair, it was one of the things that I had thought about doing, and like a few different people gave me newspaper articles where it just got blown completely out of proportion in different towns, You know, and I don't necessarily, yeah, and I don't necessarily want this to, well, it's a tradition thing, right?
Yeah. okay.
You know, and I don't want this to take up an hour and
Yes,
a
a
half
town
a time
meeting.
at town meeting, right?
Right.
So, I don't know, should we send out like feelers?
Well,
You know,
you are right, there are
Yes.
some towns where it's been blown into, you know, big
Yeah.
hullabaloo. And then a lot of other towns where it just was
Well,
no big
I'm
deal.
hoping we're one
And
of
so,
those. I would hope.
How would you put out feelers?
I don't know. That's the thing. Like, for something like this, I honestly don't know. You know?
Well, I mean, I could check with some of the long timers, you
Quick
know.
little article explaining
Yeah.
why we're doing it.
Yeah, just explain to why
Yeah.
we're doing it. But,
Yeah.
yeah, and see if we get any.
Get any feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We will, but
yeah.
Anybody has any problems with it, just have them call Luke.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, yeah.
Okay, we gotta
All
keep
right,
on
moving
moving,
on.
guys.
What's Nathan's cell phone? I'll give that to him.
Yeah,
We got,
because we got some bigger ones, no, these next two, but look at how are we preparing for these other two?
we have 15 more minutes
E
if
and
we want.
F.
Yeah.
I mean,
Appointed, oh,
not E
well,
and F, D and E.
appointed town clerk, we're going to explain why that state regulations have proliferated. You need a professional in the position. We used to have an elected
You
treasurer
don't need
at
to
a-
make the arguments for me.
No, but
My
I'm
question was
just-
more, this is one that I think, again, could end up
Yes.
being an hour's
It-
Well,
discussion.
this was,
Oh,
last time
listen,
this was up, it was a
last
several hour
time-
discussion.
Yeah,
I got up and argued against it, okay? But we also had a town clerk in the position at that time who was also against it. And we don't anymore
Yeah.
have that. In fact, I believe our new town clerk, I haven't, well, the one that was in there was for it. I assume Peggy is too. I haven't asked her directly.
think
But-
give it another try.
I think we just
and we
give it
move on.
another try, then we move on.
Well,
Exactly.
and I think the thing too is, you know, and I don't want to speak for Charlene, right? But I think with the way she retired and everything, and the way that everything went, I think she was actually more in favor.
Yes,
You know,
in
I
fact,
think
it
her
would be.
opinion
I
actually
think we could
shifted.
even have,
Shifted,
right?
yes, absolutely, it has. It
Yeah,
has.
so,
And so I think she would even get up
Yeah.
and make a
Yeah.
presentation if you wanted her
Yeah.
to. She could say, I was in the job for 15 years,
Yeah.
and it was changing the entire time that I was there, and I recommend that we have somebody who's professional in there.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
so,
yeah, and, you know, I mean, so, yeah, it might be powerful to have her come back if she's willing to
Yeah.
I'll
to
talk
say
to her.
something, yeah.
I think
Okay.
we just want to make sure that we're not saying that they're not professionals if they're appointed. It's just, there's a
Was-
big, steep learning curve. And it's so
Right.
much easier for us to appoint somebody who
Let's put
already
it to
has
the
the
experience.
knowledge,
Yeah,
if possible.
It may be not the word professional,
Right.
but somebody who's
It's
been,
not
who's
that Our past
experienced.
ones have not been professional
No.
because they're not appointed.
Right.
It, in a sense, becomes a posted job, right? I mean, and then,
Yes.
and then we really
And then-
hire
And then
somebody,
we
as
have,
opposed to
and we have a very small
Pool,
pool of
Right.
people that would,
limited to Carlisle residents.
you
It
know,
also protects us because, correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but if somebody gets voted in to be the town clerk, they can choose they're only gonna work 10 hours a week and they're still gonna get full salary, but if we
That's-
appoint
that's true.
somebody,
Right,
if we
you
appoint
can-
somebody,
Yes.
it's a 35-hour week.
There's more
Right.
accountability.
Exactly.
Right,
Yeah.
and we can hold them to that, but the way it is now, we just can't.
right.
They set their own schedule. And
Yeah.
we've just been,
Elected
been
officials can
fortunate.
set their own schedule?
That's the absolute, yeah.
Yes, get
uh,
out of here.
Yeah,
We'll get another drink.
Luke, please do.
Please do, yeah.
yeah, well,
Anybody want some water?
if you leave, I'm not paying you, though.
Oh, well then, I better sit, yeah. I know my place.
So just to finish up, I just think that we've been incredibly fortunate that we've
Yes,
had,
yes. No, no.
we've had
Two-
elected officials who have been
Really,
really
yes.
dedicated and putting in the hours that are
Yes.
really needed. Not to say that not everybody would, but we have no control over that.
Exactly.
Right.
And we can't get the person out if they're not doing their duty.
Right,
Right.
right.
Well, we do have a bylaw for that now, don't we? Or is that only selectmen?
No, you do have a
Yeah.
recall.
Yeah, right, we got the recall
So
thing
elected.
now.
Yeah, which,
Kinda
Yeah, but
cumbersome.
it takes, what, 2 years to get the.
Yeah. Then we have 3-year term for moderator, and I believe that is something that Wayne actually asked for,
Yeah, you did.
so I wouldn't have to, not that he ever runs.
Year.
uh,
It's a 1 or a 3, those are the only terms that are
Options.
allowed. You can't
Yeah.
have a 2-year term or a 4-year term
Or
or
20.
20.
Have you noticed though,
Moderated
he
for
always
life.
gets the most votes?
Yep.
Out of anybody, he always gets the most.
He does the best job.
First
Well,
of
that's
the
true.
Do we know what the revisions to the wetlands bylaw would be?
Fees, right? Is it the
Guys,
fees?
oh, those are
Is
the,
it-
I don't know. I can find out from Sylvia. They just asked for,
okay,
yeah, a place on the warrant.
that's all right. Application of bond premiums,
What's that mean?
I have no idea.
That when the town borrows money or bonds, a project, there's something called a premium, which is kind of like a discount back to the town, some amount, some small percentage of the total borrowing. And
We want as
this
many of
would
those
have,
as we can get.
I think it would state that the premium, right now, I think it can be used in a lot of ways, but I think it would be mandated that it could only be used to pay down the debt for that project or a similar project. So I think it would tell the treasurer how to use those funds.
Is that
Because
come-
currently, they go into the general fund, or they can kind of disappear.
Yeah,
So-
that is one thing. The treasurer has not had an ample opportunity to think about warrant articles that she might want to put on this year and not have to
Well,
wait.
this one came from her, so.
I understand,
Yeah,
but this
but-
is, well, that's what reminds me that
But the,
she hasn't had a real chance to,
yeah,
to look at everything that she might want to do. So we might want to be a little flexible with her if something else comes up.
yeah, that needs to be done.
And I assume that that would not have a money implication.
I was gonna say, hopefully she won't ask for money.
Yeah, right. I'm assuming that there's no money implications. I don't see a
That's-
reason why we would.
Correct, yep.
This is basically rebated portion of the excessive profits they make in the first place.
Yes, yes. Okay, raise income limit for tax deferral program.
Is there, do we have any idea what the impact on the budget is of that?
None.
None?
There's no impact?
It doesn't reduce income, tax revenue at all?
It would defer it, yes, yeah. But actually,
yes,
there's a bill in the state legislature which the state would reimburse the town.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where that's going, I have no idea at this point.
It's not an abatement, it's a deferral.
It's essentially
And-
reverse mortgage.
But the nice thing is now,
This is
we're,
what they
the
had
town
proposed.
the town is funding it, so to speak, right?
Right.
But if this bill goes through, the state would fund it up front.
Yeah.
So we do this now?
We do this now, and we're very low. I think we're $1,000 right now. And some towns have no limit. Some towns have a $5,000 or $10,000 limit.
And I think, if I remember correctly, David said only one person
Here?
has applied for it in the last
Yeah.
20 years.
Is this the thing with the interest rate? Do we have a very high interest rate? Is that?
No.
So I'm thinking of something else then.
On top of that, we did also have a high interest rate, if I recall, I agree.
Yeah, it was like 8%.
I guess
Yes.
you're right, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, whereas other towns
But
had a
this-
lower percent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is not
But-
addressing the interest rate that I can see. I think it's just that it
It's
raises.
raising the
You
limit.
can make more money
Yeah,
and still ask for this.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, no, I think if the state thing passes, that'd be fantastic, right? Because then we don't bear the burden, the state
Right.
does.
And we may know by then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, probably not.
So does it make sense for us to, like, for some of these things that are kind of straightforward, to just set some dates as to when they'll be final and people will be coming in? So that because there's a lot of them here, and so if we can just get,
Start
some
scheduling
of them
them?
done and out of the way
Yeah.
early,
Yes, yes, yes.
particularly those that
And
don't
that
have
would be an easy
budgetary
one.
numbers.
Yeah.
Right, this would, because I was certainly supportive of it when it was presented, but it's the type of thing where if we push with a date, we can get that done so there's no more discussion about it.
Right.
And we don't have to spend that time when we're trying to actually figure out what the budget is.
Okay,
Okay.
so this would be one that we could schedule fairly early.
I think a lot of these we could,
Yeah, I'll
right?
try to
Yeah.
bundle
Well,
them together.
all of 21, I think we could do fairly early,
I think
right?
20 we could do early,
20
22 we should be
can
able to do,
Yeah,
23 we should be able to do.
yes, 24.
We need a number on
We
it.
need a number, but that shouldn't be that hard, so I would push on that one. But Injured duty, on duty firefighters.
No idea what that is.
Haven't we already talked about that?
We have one for the police.
But it maybe has to be, it's a,
We did it for police at our last meeting. I'm surprised we didn't do it for both police and fire.
does this have to be a warrant article?
Is this the
It
same
would-
thing?
it has to be accepted by town meeting to be
Oh, it does?
effective.
Uh-huh.
Is this
It's,
the same thing? Because
It's similar. Chief Sorrows had proposed it a number of months ago. I had a brief conversation with Labor Council, and he thought it was a good idea too, but I can get the specifics of
so is
why.
it just
Okay.
a matter of updating the one that we just did for fire and including police?
I think it might be a different
Other way
section of the.
Other way around, yeah.
Of the general law, but I can look into that. But I think it's
So
a
again,
similar
it Sounds
notion.
like a housekeeping thing that we
Yeah.
could do right off
But it
the
seems
bat.
like the type of thing that, other than the number that's in there, it should be really, really similar, so that the
Right.
fire department and police department aren't getting different things.
Yeah, right, they're on the same
Right.
footing. Yep.
Revision to zoning bylaws,
These all came from the planning board.
yeah.
What are they thinking there for
I
solar?
think those are really, really placeholders. And what I told Madeline is that, you know, they're gonna try to get something, but they're not sure. And really what they would love to see us have is a fall town meeting so that they could push these off to the fall.
Hmm.
But,
So do we have a
so
date
these are,
beyond which we're gonna say, no, it is gonna be in the fall?
Or the following spring, we
Right.
don't do fall.
well, I think, honestly, if we're going to do a review of our town bylaw, which did council start on that yet or not?
But I think they started.
Starting-
Haven't had an update in a while, but I can
Okay, well,
ask
I
them
mean,
that.
we could undertake in fall to do a review town bylaw, complete thing. It might even include a little bit, I mean, if they're working on this reorganization of the thing, that,
Yeah, funding.
Yeah.
that would give this, it would be better for the planning board, because we could then maybe even do some funding of that, if we
Yeah.
knew what the structure looked like. So in the fall, we could
Would
do
give
the
them more
structure
time.
and the funding,
But I think
and
we'd
give
get
them
pushback from FinCom about
Yeah.
doing any funding things.
I
in the fall,
understand,
And I would
but-
totally agree, because now you're mid-year and.
Well, but this is sort of a special case where
But
we.
couldn't you be discussing it and approving it in the fall so that it went into the next year's budget?
Yes, that's the other
Right.
possibility.
But
at least.
when the town votes on it, they like to know what it's gonna cost.
Yeah.
No, but they'd have to know by then what it would cost. They'd have to know by the fall.
Yeah, I mean,
It would not have gone through any kind of an approval process. It wouldn't have gone through FinCom or anything like that by then.
well, no, I think it would, right? If they
Would it?
were trying to get it set
Yeah.
up for then, I
Yeah.
think that's what they would do, it would go through personnel.
Right.
I just, we seem to continuously have this discussion, we would have bylaws in the fall and funding, money stuff in the spring, but
Right.
there always seems to be something that sneaks in the fall, right? And, I mean,
Well, we've only had 2 fall meetings in 6
Right.
years I've been on the Board of Selectmen, so it's not like,
right, but it's becoming a more common thing.
well,
you know?
because we did it once.
Because what?
Just because we did it once
Yeah,
this
no,
year,
exactly.
right?
Well,
I mean, does
right,
that
well,
mean
that's what
it's-
happens,
does
right?
that mean it's
But-
a trend?
But, to the
It is if we do
bylaw
it
things,
again.
yeah, exactly. But to the bylaw things, I would rather do the bylaws in the fall if we're gonna have the same train wreck thing we had with the marijuana. If it's not ready, it's not ready,
Right.
right? And then we push it, right?
Yeah.
Right, and that's why I just say we need to have a date. I don't even think we need to have the fall discussion right now. I think right now we're talking about the spring. What is the drop dead date for when we need to know whether or not this is gonna be in the spring?
Well, I think it's, we need to set a date to have them bring it to us and have us fully understand. I think that was the biggest thing with the marijuana thing last year, right? We just assumed foolishly that the planning board was taking care of it. No, I'm not knocking the planning board.
So I would say the
But-
middle of January.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. We didn't have enough time to
By-
review
by our
all the
first,
stuff.
by our first, or we only have 2 a month, so by the,
Second week in
by the
Second
second week in
Tuesday,
January, come
yeah.
to him, come to us with them.
All right. I don't expect that they'll be ready to do that.
No, I don't think they will
I think
be,
it's
right?
too much work for them to do.
Yeah, no,
to
I
be able to
think they have a
handle,
ton on their
Given
plate.
the fact that they have,
Yeah.
they don't have the staff.
Right. No, I mean, I think, Madeline and Pete, they're doing a great job, but yeah, they've got a ton to do. And the thing is I think we should partially own this a little bit too. if we truly want it to not be the mess it was last year, we need to get somebody involved earlier on, right? Because I think that was the thing, we just assumed they were gonna do it. Then they presented it to us in a, kind of an abridged fashion and just, hey, here it is. Here's the summary. And we all said, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But then you get to town meeting, it's like, whoa, wait a second, it was confusing to everybody,
Right.
So if we're involved in the process, council's involved in the process, then, we have somebody come back and report, okay, this is how this wording's going, this is how this wording's going. I think the bylaw stuff, to Kate's credit as chair, she's doing a lot to improve these and, take out the junk. So any new one that comes along, I think, we have to be more fully involved and engaged. Just so moving forward, it's a smoother process because, that was a mess the last time.
It was a mess.
But there's no urgency on it either.
No,
See,
exactly, right,
that's-
there's no urgency.
Which is why I think we should give them the fall,
Yeah, take our
to do
time
it.
and do it right.
Or the following spring.
or the
Yeah.
following spring.
Yep.
But,
But we can still say, if it's gonna be, I think, I happen to agree with Nathan on this. I think we have to deal with, I know.
What's wrong with you?
Well,
Jeez.
it's getting late.
Yep. Oh, you got a fever, yeah.
We set for the spring meeting, we set a January deadline.
Yep.
And we'll deal with stuff for the fall later.
Yep.
I think that we can have another, if we decide we're gonna have a fall meeting, we can set a deadline for that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I also, as I recall, this whole idea of the fall meeting came from the moderator who thought it would be better to do 2 one-night town meetings at different ends of the calendar than 1 2 to 3 night town meeting, because people start falling away and they lose interest and,
Yep.
so that's,
Yeah, and you have spending one and housekeeping in the other.
yeah.
I just think you really need to make sure you stick to that, though.
Yeah,
We can't
Okay.
be mid-year changing the budget.
All right, well, that's fine, this, but then, I think planning board should be, because she said, can we put a contingency in our budget? Maybe they do want to put a contingency in their budget, since that's the project that they're working on.
Yeah, but
Since they can't
they're
change-
not gonna be ready.
they're not
It wouldn't
gonna
be their
ready.
budget anyway, right? From what we were talking about, right?
Yeah, no, it
Be
would
more of
be.
a shared-
be a
Kind of a
different-
shared, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, see, that's why this particular one is sort of,
Agree to
oh,
anything.
yeah.
a different animal, but I don't know how you handle it. But anyway, designation of scenic road is, that's a no-brainer.
Straightforward.
Who's asking for that?
Planning
Church
board is
Street.
asking for that.
Oh, planning board?
And so that's just from the center of town up through to the school?
I don't
Wouldn't
recall
include
what
all the way down the
all the
hill
way
to
down the hill.
Spalding and all that, because that's not very scenic.
Yeah, well,
Neither is the other end.
yeah, it seems
Yeah, I'm
like,
just wondering, because it seems to
you
me
got
like
the
the only
church.
thing that would change there is the cutting of a tree.
yeah,
Because because it's historical commission, right? So what are we gaining other than somebody can't cut down a tree?
yeah.
Well, let's
we
find
need
out
to
what the
ask her.
reasoning was,
Yeah.
if this is
Well,
from the planning board.
Can they put a temporary line over the road for
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 A
an
car
electric
charger?
car? Yeah, right?
Can they put a temporary
Is
line?
that
on
The temporary line that Jonathan
it
talked
wasn't
about.
a temporary line, it would be a permanent line.
Oh, the
No,
one,
No,
just
so they wouldn't dig in the
it's
winter.
just an overhead where they didn't have to
Oh.
dig in the winter.
Anything that's over
Ah.
90 days, I mean, but that would be outside of the historic
I missed that.
district anyway.
I think we're
No,
gonna
but not
come-
scenic road, right?
If it's a
That
scenic
scenic
road.
road wouldn't, that wouldn't
It
impact
doesn't
the
have anything
scenic
to do with
road.
that,
No.
right?
No.
It's all
Scenic
aesthetic
road is
character, isn't it?
trees, stone walls.
Yes, trees
Yeah.
and stone walls, period.
Yeah.
Okay.
pretty much
So
that.
now,
There's
so now
nothing
what
for
you're
aesthetics
saying
then.
is if you want to do something on Church Street, you're gonna have to go to both HISCOM and the planning board, rather than just one.
Maybe we scared them by talking about village court expansion.
That's not incredibly scenic
But, yeah,
road.
why, it just seems like there's so many scenic road designations over the past few years. I mean,
Yeah.
we've got a ton of them.
Well, I'm wondering if a citizen came to them to request it.
Well, let's find
need
out.
to find
Let's,
out.
let's move
Yeah, we
on
don't know what
and
the-
find
we have no
out
idea what
more.
the justification is on
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah, can we get more information on that?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
I assume Board of Health will be making a presentation about why we need, in fact, did I
Yes.
see something in the schedule
Yeah.
already
Yes.
There was, yeah.
about it?
Yep,
Oh, not the parking lot again.
Yep,
yep.
yep. And I don't know where this, you got the 800K number from.
Might have been a member of the administration over there, but
Okay.
it's
All right.
not an official figure because the
Yeah,
school
no.
committee hasn't recommended the project yet.
Because I was
but
here on Monday night.
It
and
could be in that ballpark, I think.
Yeah.
Our share?
That's the
No.
total,
No.
that's
That's
the
the
total.
total,
So
yeah, okay. And our share would be roughly
We'll throw in
A
a buck.
quarter, 25% of that.
25%.
It's more than
Still.
double our entire Complete Streets project.
Yes.
Yeah.
Triple, triple.
Yes, you see, that's the thing that's, oh, but, here's the news. Concord is having their town meeting the same night as Carlisle. And their town meeting always goes 2 nights. So there's been a negotiation, and the school, the CCHRs, CCRSD, will come to us first. So we have the first crack at the
Budget,
at
yeah.
at the budget and at the,
Well, that's an easy one.
On the-
No. Done, all right. Yeah.
so there you go.
Yeah.
Huh.
Tell them we'll go for
So we can just cross this one off?
it. Put that in the win column.
I wonder who's, that's interesting. Okay.
So, yeah, because they always go 2 nights, so
Right.
they decided
Right, they
they
could
would
put
do,
theirs on the
they're
second
gonna
night.
put the school on the second
All
night.
right, hey. Yeah, finally, they're,
Worked out.
yeah,
Yeah.
we have value to them.
Yeah. Okay, transportation vouchers and crosstown connectors.
Are these new or are these just recurring things?
The
They're new.
newish, well,
The,
no,
The
the transportation voucher
It's
has
an old
been
program, yeah.
on, it's just being renewed,
It was voted about 5 years ago
yeah.
for about $10,000, and I think they're down to the last $2,000.
Yeah.
They say they're looking for a
Yeah.
infusion
A
of
refill.
funds into that program.
The crosstown connect, however, is new, and I'm not.
That's new, yeah.
We need to talk about it.
Yeah, because that was originally funded by a grant,
Right.
right? And then,
No,
Crosstown
no,
Connect?
no, Cross-Town Connect hasn't been funded at all.
no,
Tried to
something.
get this a
Well,
few
we-
times.
No, we gave them a
We
car.
gave them a vehicle
A used car.
for this year's membership. in
Yeah,
Crosstown
there was
Connect.
something that we gave,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And then,
That
so
only
what
got us
was,
1 year?
Yeah.
That got us 1 year, yeah.
yeah, who negotiated that one? But, what's that, the Chinna, isn't it in the?
Chinna
grant.
Chinna?
No, that's the
No.
public health nurse.
No, there's the public health nurse, the rec center, and I thought there was a transportation thing. I thought that was for this.
For the voucher? No, it wasn't for
No,
Crosstown
for-
Connect, for sure.
Okay. There was,
It might have been for vouchers,
remember
but
those
if
ones?
anything, but I don't think so.
Might be the vouchers.
I don't think so.
I guess he needs to come in and tell us about these.
Yeah,
Yeah, he will.
Program.
This is also one of those, these are
By the way,
two
there's
of
no
those other ones
instructions
that we
on how to
could
sign
get
up for
done
that.
quickly.
Yeah,
Right,
I
early.
would say
Nowhere.
one is yes and one is no.
Well,
Most
I didn't
likely,
mean that
but
quickly.
All right.
Just knowing what it is. Okay. And then we didn't even look at the above ones. I
Oh.
mean, municipal facilities did bring a list and numbers.
Yeah,
Um,
a lot.
Yeah, that was a lot, and we'll have to look at those.
Yeah.
Special appropriation system maps. Okay. And then, of course, the one that we also won't know about yet is the collective bargaining agreements for the dispatchers.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Anything else on this?
Will this be on the agenda at our next meeting to continue on these ones where we want more information?
It can be. I'm thinking of the 2 meetings in January, maybe to bring those boards in to make their,
Yeah, I think
'cause I think
January.
the schedule calls for the warrant to be closed at the end of January, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think
So it would
wasn't
be
it
good-
our last meeting in it's
Yeah,
the,
So it'll
like
be
the
good to
24th or
kind of hear
something.
from these boards,
Yeah,
make their pitch for
Right.
getting it on the warrant.
Because what we want to try to avoid is having any warrants on there that we're not gonna support.
Exactly.
Right.
right.
So,
So we really need those numbers.
Yep.
We really need to hear from them. I think we really just need to put dates by some of these things. And I don't, I don't know, maybe you could do that knowing how much work needs to go into each of these things and talking to them and saying, when could you be ready?
Yeah,
Well, what I was gonna say, a note to them, to everybody, saying that the warrant will be closed at the end of January. We need to have the numbers by then, and we will have to have a presentation. Please sign up
For these
for,
dates,
well,
Either.
for,
a couple of the meeting dates?
yeah.
yeah, I think it's the 14th and the 28th.
Yeah.
So I asked them which of these two
Which of
meetings.
these do you want to
yeah.
be on?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we only need, you don't wanna spread them out too much, still, just those 2 dates.
We're gonna have a presentation on all of these in 2 meetings?
Well, we may end up, devoting most of it, yeah, because we need to, if you wanna close it, we need to have the presentations, otherwise how do we
And
do
aren't
it?
there
I
some
totally
we
get
could
it, I
do
think we're
in?
just not gonna be
Maybe
able to talk
we
about
could do
other
some in
things, which is
December
fine.
then.
Well,
Yeah, I'm
that's
just
it.
wondering if
We
we couldn't
won't.
do a few in December, that kind of,
The easy ones,
We only
maybe.
have
Easy
one meet,
ones.
well, we can,
we got 2 meetings, don't we?
No, one meeting
one
is.
meeting in
Meeting.
December. We can
And is
have
that
the
the
easy
joint
ones in December, you can figure out, we've marked a bunch that we thought were easy, do you, need
Right, some of the bylaw ones that we had,
bylaw
the
ones,
board had, yeah.
this have in
supports it.
December, and then the other ones that need more time.
It was one the week of Christmas that we
It's the
canceled.
money ones that we really need to
Right.
have the money,
Yeah,
the thing by end of just,
okay.
okay. We've gone way past this now.
Yep.
Town government organization policy and bylaw review. Well, we did the investment policy, so that's
Yeah.
done.
And the election of chairpersons, I think we have our revised version of that.
Yeah.
Right here.
The only thing is, I kind of feel it's missing the word "is." The following policy relative to the election and term of chairpersons for all appointed town committees and elected boards is not a sentence, because it has no verb in it.
Right.
Is, you're correct, is.
So it needs the following policy
Is
is
relative.
relative.
Shall be.
But with that amendment and any other amendments anybody wants to, but I think we could have a motion as amended.
Yeah, it looks fine to me,
I
given the
move that the
discussion.
Board of Selectmen vote to adopt the revised policy entitled Election of Chairpersons as amended this evening.
Second.
Is there any further discussion?
Do you want to look at it?
Section was it in, 7?
It's in
7,
seven.
yeah. It's the top paper after the,
Don't look there, I may have already taken it out, and then it would be my fault.
Okay. Nobody has any other comments? All right,
No.
there's a motion, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Then, for
The
some
ambulance
reason, we
fee.
don't have the ambulance thing, but, we have this letter
Oh, I
again.
did have that.
But in
it's
the
in the
minutes,
administrator's report, too.
in the minutes, hold on, I'll get there. We had, two things that we had decided we could decide between. The town currently enters a contract with a third-party billing company to bill for EMS services. The approved contract shall be considered the town's billing policy. That was one choice. The other choice was the town may enter into contracts with billing agencies to bill for appropriate medical care provided by the fire department.
I like the first one.
I do too.
I do too.
So, those are in, that wording is right in the minutes from our last meeting, under ambulance policy. And I had some other thoughts about what happens to the money that's collected. And we have a little fund now.
The ambulance fees?
The ambulance fees go into a little fund that is paid, I think we should have a policy about the funds and about what they can be spent on and whether any of it ever goes into the general fund, or is it only for ambulances? We just bought it,
Well, sometimes it's to offset the fire department budget. So it's
Yeah,
all
but-
appropriated at town meeting. It has to be appropriated at town meeting. So sometimes in the budget article, it says transfer 50,000 from ambulance receipts. So that's clearly not an ambulance purchase, that's just putting $50,000
Really?
toward the
Which is then not.
fire operating budget for the year.
So our oversight is that,
It's-
is that we don't allow that to go on the warrant, we direct it elsewhere, right?
If you didn't want the receipts to be used as a budget offset for that particular year, you wouldn't
Right.
support. Yeah, it's usually in the FinCom's budget motion, the various funds that are being,
Okay, and that's so that.
so
they
much
can
from taxation
offset-
and so much from this fund and that fund.
Okay, but
and-
they've had some control, there's some, what I'm worried about is that they set a budget for the fire department, and the fire department kind of helps themselves to 50,000 extra outside of the control of the FinCom and us.
They can't spend this money, the town has to appropriate it.
Okay, so I guess the question is, do we,
It doesn't really increase their budget, because the fire budget is X, and the town is raising the bulk of that through taxation, but also they're using 50,000 from the ambulance fund. So it's just, it's a
Okay.
revenue source, it's not,
Right.
it's not increasing the budget that they can spend.
okay, well, that's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
ensure. So I was wondering if we wanted to say something about the money collected is,
Oh, jeez.
you know, used for municipal purposes, which may include purchase of new ambulances or some.
Yeah, I think 2 years ago, we did buy one.
Yeah,
Right, and so I think
It just
the way to
builds
look
up.
at it is, it's not an ambulance fund in that we're getting money so that we can buy an ambulance. It's an
Right.
ambulance fund because we're charging fees for ambulance runs.
It's
Right.
the income end,
So
not the
it's-
out.
Yes,
not the out-
I
the
understand
ambulance
that.
part is the income.
I understand. The question is, are any of those monies ever used for other municipal purposes, other than being transferred to fund the police, the fire department, or buying an ambulance?
Not in recent years.
No,
And is there any reason why
and the only way to,
it hasn't been? Is
Well,
there a
require-
policy about that? Or is it just because
well, it
we've
requires a
always
town
done it
meeting
that way?
appropriation to withdraw any funds from it, so
I guess that's been the FinCom recommendation.
so you couldn't spend it throughout the year. You know, town meeting would have had to authorize you to.
A town meeting could decide, we're gonna take $100,000 of this money and put it towards a dog fence.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
what I'm
yeah, sure,
asking.
yeah.
Well,
I think it's any legal municipal purpose. Historically, it's been to support the fire
But
department's
that could
Right,
change.
budget.
that's why I would like to write a policy which says that funds collected from these fees are to be used for municipal purposes, which may include purchase of new ambulances or support of the fire department.
So you make it clear that it could also be other things,
Right.
yeah.
I'm not sure I agree.
Okay,
That's
why I'm-
Because we already have the flexibility. We're saying the entire fire department budget could be funded out of this, if we chose to do it that way. Okay. The beauty of it is, the firemen who run those ambulances get to seem to reap the benefits of it. There really isn't any, because we're simply using that money to fund the budget we're gonna fund them in for anyway, we're just replacing tax money with it. If we were to say, we're gonna siphon off money from your ambulance fees to fund something else, I would think that would be poorly received.
And the way we have it now, we could do that anyway.
Exactly.
Town meeting could do it
Right,
anyway.
Good,
if we
good,
needed
yep.
to, yeah.
Okay.
But in fact, the monies are never so much that you couldn't spend all of it as an offset to the fire department.
Right.
Budget supported by taxes.
Right, so rather than paying for a dog fence, just cut the budget $100,000 more and say, we're gonna put it from
The
that.
ambulance
Yeah.
fees to cover the difference.
Yes.
Exactly.
And it keeps it within the same fire department
Okay.
bucket.
Yep.
Do we want a policy to say that the monies would only be used for support of the fire department?
I don't personally think there's a need to change it.
Okay, that's
But I
fine,
think-
I just,
but I think that
it's just a question.
What it probably means is we just need to have, we're the ones that decide this, but we probably just wanna have a conversation with FinCom.
Yes,
Right.
right.
Yes.
Yep.
That, hey,
Yeah. And we want to get rid of the old policy. which said, we're gonna collect 75 cents
Yes.
every time the ambulance.
Right,
runs. Yeah.
exactly,
That's
right.
way too much money.
Yeah, yes,
We wouldn't know what to do with it.
okay, good. That's, so we've had, the questions have been asked.
Shouldn't
We've made it,
All
we've
right,
had the
so we don't
discussion.
need to.
We don't need to
vote
change
on
that.
anything
And,
there.
yes, no, we are going to vote on the following
Eliminating the old-
language.
Okay.
So the language, the proposed language is, and you guys can all turn to, it's almost the last page of the minute. No,
Oh, okay.
you know, if you-
Yep.
Yeah.
Says, "The town currently enters a contract with a third-party billing company to bill for EMS services. The approved contract shall be considered the town's billing policy."
Right.
And do we want to just move that, be included in our policy book? Is that what you're suggesting? To take
Yes.
the place of what was in there?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. You want me to do that?
Yep.
I move that we put into the town policy,
We adopt the following policy.
we adopt the following policy. The town currently enters a contract with a third-party billing company to bill for EMS services. The approved contract shall be considered the town's billing policy.
Second.
Okay. We want to, yeah, okay, we'll worry about where this goes and all this other stuff later. And hopefully it'll have about the same sort of, you'll put a title on it and make it pretty it up. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Give it a couple of whereases and.
Yeah, yeah. Where are my whereases? All right.
I hate to do this, but I swapped some of my coming in late for a need to leave early.
Oh.
Okay.
You're like the Indian who invented daylight savings time by cutting off one end of his blanket and sewing on the other to make it longer.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay,
See you later.
all right.
Thank you all.
All right. You were here for all the juicy stuff,
Yeah.
so that was,
Have a good Thanksgiving.
yeah, and
Yeah,
same to
you
you,
too.
fella. Buster.
Buster.
Right.
Can you just shut the door, that door, as you're going? Thank you.
me on the way up.
Yeah. Okay.
Hard, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Don't want anybody breaking into this place.
We're at appointments and resignations. So we're taking this.
Yeah, the
Anybody
OS.
wanna make
Ready for a move?
Yes.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to appoint the following individuals to the Open Space Recreational Plan Committee. David Friedman of 301 Hutchins, Debbie Geltner of 80 Cranberry Lane, Steve Hinton of 684 East Street, Rhonda Michaud of 50 Har Farm Road, Amy Smack,
But that's Hartwell.
Hart Farm Road.
Yeah, I bet you it
Hart,
is too.
okay.
Amy Smack of 114 Red Pine Drive,
CRT.
Sally Zelinski of 384 Acton Street, Mary Zoll of 225 School Street. I
That's
Put
it.
that part up in the
Yeah,
beginning.
you did.
Yeah.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
And any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And then there's a second motion.
Can I make just one comment before
Yes.
we do the second motion, is that I would really like us to just encourage this group to be sure and interface with the master plan committee. Because it makes sense that they should be, whatever data they're collecting, right, should be fed into the Civic Moxie consultant and make sure they're kind of on the same page, so. But anyway, move on to the Recreation Commission.
With the RecCom thing before, is it says right here, one vacant position to the resignation of Pete Best, but he's still on here. Did Mark Spears resign? Or?
No, it was
Just have-
Pete.
Pete, okay, yeah, so
Best,
Mark
yeah,
needs
he's-
to be added back to the list. 'Cause
The current members, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Pete,
On the recreational.
Pete on the list of,
Commission, let me see.
Yeah, so Pete's still on the list and Mark
Peter
was
Best.
taken off.
Recreation, Courtney Miles, Peter Best. Well, he's on my list.
Yeah, but he shouldn't be.
Yeah, but he shouldn't be, he's the one that
He's gone, sorry.
resigned.
Mark
Yeah.
Spears.
Yeah, Mark
He's
Spears.
gone. Amy Smack, Andrea McMorro.
So Mark Spears stays on,
Yeah.
and then we're approving Lynette Kelleher.
Yep.
You want me to make a motion?
Please do.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to appoint Lynette Kelleher, 601 Rutland Street, to serve on the Recreation Commission with a term that will expire June 30th, 2021.
Second?
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry.
Anything else? Oh, I see this. Town administrators report.
Okay. A few items. Yeah, the first item, actually, that the town of Carlisle is one of 90 communities that receiving cybersecurity awareness grant from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Actually, the town of Carlisle and the Carlisle Public School will be part of this program, which will provide training and tools for employees to better recognize cybersecurity threats. It'll involve some simulation of phishing attacks and the like, and create an awareness of sort of the issues that have to do with cyber security. It's going to be a year-long grant program, and we're, as I say, one of 90 communities that'll participate in it this year. So it's, I think, good news for the town. This is something that the technology committee's been talking with our vendor about actually providing to us some additional training in cybersecurity, so we'll be getting a lot of this, under the grant with the state, so certainly welcome news.
Yeah.
Second, just a note about how the ambulance fees are set. We're part of the Central Middlesex Emergency Response Association. Their executive board actually sets the fees, and all the communities that are signatory to that agreement go along with the fees that the executive board sets under the agreement that set up the district. So that's historically how the fees have been set in recent years. There's a note there about the rescheduling the Christmas tree lighting, which I've seen, I think I saw that in the newspaper last week, so that the word is getting out there that it's Tuesday, December 10th. And a note from our municipal aggregation company, Colonial Power, that Eversource put out their winter basic service adjustment rates that begin January 1st, and their estimate is that the average participant in the program will save about $76 over the next 6 months. They're estimating a 12% savings over the basic rate that the utility will provide.
That's good news.
So that's,
Excellent.
We
Do you know
should
what
try to
time the tree lighting is?
We should,
it's 6 PM, I think.
publicize that. Or
yes,
somehow
and it's,
make sure it's in the
100%
mosquito.
renewable.
Pardon?
And
It's-
it's
that's
100%
correct.
renewable.
Yeah.
So we're saving money over what National Grid would have charged us for brown energy.
Right.
Eversource today sent out emails to all their customers saying, watch out for people trying to change you from your current supplier.
Huh.
And I got 2 calls last week.
Oh, I keep on getting things in the mail all the
I
time,
got
too.
telephone calls.
Okay. Yeah. Huh. So.
All right.
there's Something that you put in the packet that we don't have on your list, though, on your notes. That's the, what I was kind of wondering, is the letter from John Mativier about the,
Oh, well, on the building, on the inspection of the DPW, oh, that's right, that's not in there. Or maybe you would, I mean, the facilities committee asked the building commissioner to conduct that survey, and the letter is more or less his findings
A survey of what?
of the conditions at the DPW facilities,
Ah, okay.
just in terms of being habitable for
Yes,
winter
yes.
operations and people's sleeping upstairs and so forth.
Yeah, so.
what did he-
okay,
what
so
was the
thing
results?
is that we were told by TBA that it was totally, illegal, bad. We had to take out that whole thing because it was taking us over, the 9,000 square feet that would require sprinklering, and so we thought we would, that's why we put a trailer on the warrant article. And, there was some resistance from the DPW having a trailer to start with, and so we were struggling with that, and then we said, what we thought we were gonna do was, we thought we would force the DPW into the trailer by getting a report from the building commissioner.
It's the best laid plan.
And this is what resulted. And they, basically, is not as bad as we were told.
Okay.
That, yes, there are some things that have to be done to fix it, to make it habitable and safe. But, no, you don't need to kick them out wholesale and get a trailer. Now, the problem is, no, it's not a problem, and it's too bad that Nathan's not here. We have money for a trailer, but we don't have money to fix this. So, we are going to do our best to scramble some money from other things that were more loosely worded and that we can possibly, shuttle to fix this, and then we'll be returning money for the, we'll probably be asking to repurpose it for other projects, but we don't need it for this project, as it turns out. And really, we do need some money because a new ventilation system will
Yeah.
cost something. So the money has to be repurposed for this, but we can't just say, okay, we'll just do this instead. So that's what that is.
All right, and then you see the upcoming meeting schedule.
Yeah.
And on the December 10th agenda, there's another joint meeting with the Finance Committee regarding the budget
Yeah,
process.
that's an important meeting.
No meeting on the 24th, and then 2 meetings in January, and we'll have departments in to present warrant articles at both of those sessions.
And I just want to say the meeting on the January 14th is also the night of the Carlisle Community Chorus concert, so I will have to miss the first part of our meeting.
Okay?
Of January 14th?
Yeah, the 24,
Oh,
14th, what is it?
10th?
The
Just
14th.
The 14th.
The 14th, yeah.
All right, well, it is what it is.
Yep.
Did you catch the Alan Brown's on this, or?
Oh, I did not.
Okay, well, I got it.
Okay.
Oh, God, did I do it again?
It's okay, twice. All right, moving
Liaison
on to
report.
I read
minutes.
something, I didn't catch
So
that.
can I just do a
sorry.
quick
Liaison
liaison
reports,
report?
yes, sorry.
That's okay. Just, I don't know if you're aware of this, I wasn't until I was invited to attend. I think it was a general invitation to all the board, but the school is starting a visioning. They have created a visioning committee. I didn't realize I was, by going, I was agreeing to be on the committee.
That's why you always go to the second.
Yeah. But anyway, I went to the first one. They have a pretty broad cross-section of people there. It's a pretty good turnout, too. It's probably 25 people. And more than they expected.
All
And their goal, what they want to do is kind of step back and take a broader look at how the school, kind of the big picture about curriculum and what the trends are over the next 10 to 20 years and what that means, the changes that we already see, and how do they need to adapt so that students that are graduating from the elementary school are really going to be prepared to participate in quite a different world by the time they become adults. So it's a kind of big picture thing. And they would love to have other people participate. They're going to meet monthly for about a year, they're thinking. I don't know, it may take longer, but Anyway, that's the update. If anybody has any input they want to offer. My one general comment is, so the school's doing that, the planning board is going through, they're rethinking some of that. Then we have the master plan, and then what was the other one we just voted on?
Open
The
space.
open space and recreation. There's a lot of this, looking at the big picture, and I'm not sure what the message should be, but it would be great if we can make sure that the master plan is being used to forward, or all those pieces are being fed into it, so that we don't end up with, the school has made their plan, and there's some elements of that that don't fit with the master plan, et cetera.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure what the
The op-
answer is, but I think maybe we, as the Board of Selectmen, need to provide some leadership or encouragement or, structure to ensure that happens, so that this money we're paying for a consulting team is really well spent.
The open space and recreation plan is, first of all, it's an update.
Right.
And it's more of an inventory of open space, and then they sort of prioritize which ones, if they were to come up for sale, they prioritize which ones they think are more important to buy than others, for instance.
But what's the basis on which they would determine that list of priorities?
Usually it's how, if they're connected to other open pieces, whether there's trails that are
Well,
connecting
exactly, and
things
see,
like
I
that.
really think that should be integrated into looking at the whole picture about potential commercial development, or public and private, opportunities for housing that might be a combination of conservation and housing, rather than
Yeah, no, I
just,
totally get
right?
it,
So,
yeah.
I'm not sure what the,
Because I've often actually pulled out that plan when we were talking about housing, to see what was out
Right.
there, because they're usually parcels of 10 acres and over,
right,
and to see, okay, who's
right.
out there and what's out there.
Right, right.
what-
And, CCF does the same thing, the Carlisle Conservation Foundation, they have their list of
Yes.
priorities, and, the Housing Trust is starting to think
Yeah.
about the same thing, right, from the angle of, so,
Yeah, no, it's a very good
right,
point.
how do we get that, fed into the master plan? So maybe just,
Could we, well, which direction do we go? Could we write a letter to the planning board / Jan Cornell?
Jan Corneal,
To say there are these other things out there, and we really, we will, and CC, I guess, those other things, like this commission and that
Yeah.
commission, and say, we really want you to,
be working
just
together, or
basically what you just
sharing
said.
information, and coordinating, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably should come from the master planning committee, inviting them to contribute.
Yes. But, so the thing to the master plan would be saying, we want to make you aware that there are all these studies
Yeah, right.
ongoing, and we hope that you will be inviting them to give their input.
Right,
Maybe that's the way to handle it.
How the timing of these
Right.
various things work out. The master plan may be done long before these people ever get their priorities done.
Well,
oh,
yeah,
the
it
open,
depends.
yeah.
An open
it dep-
space plan
has to be
has
done.
a deadline.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
It's a state mandated
Oh, okay.
report.
right, right,
The
but,
same as, it's, same with the
Okay.
housing.
Yep.
so is that something you could take on, Kate?
I'll take that
doing-
on.
Okay.
Actually, are we on tape?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what she said.
If you need help
And,
with
no,
the different
no,
groups,
no, no.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
I'm
I
happy
can
to,
help
no, I
with,
will do
but
it.
make sure we got all the groups covered.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Board of Health, just to know that
Yeah.
their, big discussion, Alan was there too, about the, last night at the Board of Health, about how to handle the fines that have accrued, and, a lot of discussion about that, and there were two votes taken. One was to terminate for now, or suspend, I guess was the language, the $500 a day fine as of last, pardon?
The 20th.
The 20th, when the tight tank went in at Benfield and was actually beginning to work. So no more effluents going up to the leaching field. So they suspended the $500 a day fine. And then the second vote was to require that a third of that, was there an amount? I can't remember. But the fine is about $35,000, so if about a third of that,
The motion was the percentage 1/3,
yeah, of that be,
be waived.
yeah, maybe you could,
on- Contingent upon it going to a reserve fund to help offset future costs.
and that was gonna be paid by
By NOAA.
So basically a bond?
No, it's not a
Or not?
bond per se, it's just, I mean, they can't, if you find them, it goes to the general fund.
Yeah.
that's what we learned, yeah.
If they put in a reserve fund, they get to spend it or use it for repairs that need to be done at Benfield.
I see, so it's
So,
going into,
Yeah.
so 1/3 of the fees, but why not, where are the other 2/3 of the fees going?
Well, they're held in abeyance, they're not implementing them at this point. They're gonna
They
wait
may
and see
collect
what-
them later, or
yeah,
they may,
waive them.
if they do a good job on finishing, or,
Yeah.
because they're about to hire, the BOH is about to hire an engineer to do the review of the whole septic system. And NOAA is moving to make some of the other repairs that have been talked about. So they're basically giving them sort of an
Okay.
encouragement.
But not much can be done now till March 1st.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And just to know that the master plan is moving forward. Did you receive an invitation from the Civic Moxie folks for some kind of interview?
No?
Okay. Well, you did, yeah. As
They like you better than they like me?
Apparently.
as Complete Streets, or as?
No, housing and
CPA?
CPA, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So what they're doing, anyway, they're reaching out to a number of
Okay.
people to do either phone interviews or face-to-face interviews in some cases with an individual, some cases with a group. But that's gonna continue basically through, I think, probably till the middle of January. Then I'll double-check what the plan is around the Board of Selectmen.
I would love to be invited as, well, maybe the municipal facilities, because that would certainly be someplace that they should be looking to as well.
Okay.
Especially if they plan on adding any new buildings, because we would
Yeah.
have to maintain them.
Yeah. And the last thing I'd like to say on that is that the other thing that's gonna start happening is all these kitchen table conversations at different people's homes where they've volunteered to just have a small group come in and talk about where things are and what they would like to see changed. I'd really like to encourage all of us to volunteer to host one.
I already have.
Awesome. And Alan, I think, have you offered to host one?
Nope.
What
He's
is
in
it?
my neighborhood, he can come to mine.
Okay. But Luke, it'd be great
I
if,
don't like people. Okay, I don't care.
if you'd be willing to host one at some point. And it's, we're talking 10, 12 people that are near you that you bring in, and we would provide you with a kind of a guide.
Half of my neighborhood is on it. I mean, there's Madeline Blake who's my
Yeah,
neighbor,
Right.
and you were a neighbor, you're basically a neighbor too.
Well, that's
you
true.
know.
You're around the
Um,
corner.
And
Yeah.
Beverly is around the
That's
corner.
right.
And now I've got, and just beyond her is one of the trustees for the library. So
You
we're all.
breed, that neighborhood breeds good town involvement.
Right, you know.
Yeah, okay.
Something in the-
But just
the
in
air.
general, I think it'd be
No,
great
it's
as the,
because we have a winery in the neighborhood.
oh, okay, yeah.
Yes, maybe that's what it
Anyway,
is.
it'd be great if we as a board could try to make an effort to vote, publicly when you have the opportunity, but also when there
Yeah,
are
no.
meetings of the master plan, the larger community meetings to make sure that we attend.
Yeah.
And I'll keep you posted on those
I was
meetings.
at the last meeting, that's why
Yes.
I signed up for being a host.
Good, good,
Star next to my name or whatever it was we were supposed to do.
great.
Okay, anything else?
We're
Minutes.
getting back on track.
There was the two typos, I'll send you. There's one sentence that didn't belong where you put it, but otherwise there was nothing substantive. So if somebody wants to make a motion.
The date. I move that the meeting of the Board of Selectmen of Tuesday, November 12th, 2019, be approved as amended.
Second.
Jennifer? It's okay. I highlighted it.
Oh, thank you.
That's
I
'cause I-
appreciate that.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Need a vote.
Oh,
you got
sorry.
discussion or?
Discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none, okay. So we are ready, I would like to entertain a motion to move, to close our open meeting and move into executive session, not to return to open session.
I move we close the open session of the Board of Selectmen.
Second?
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the
Right.
I move that the Board of Selectmen go into executive session to address approval of executive session minutes of January 10th, March 28th, April 11th, April 25th, June 9th, June 27th, and August 29th, 2017, not to reopen upon adjournment.
And,
Second.
second, and that's a roll call vote.
Oskalilowai?
Louis, aye?
Reed, aye?
Arnold, I.
Okay. Thank
Of
you.
course, I wasn't here for any of those.
Well, I was obviously at one.